You found the Stealth Podcast. Tonight, we'll travel through dark and lonely stories. Where in the world are you watching from? What time is it there? Subscribe and leave your like to support us. Let's begin. My name is Thaddeus Mercer, 34 years old, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. I'd been living the van life for nearly 2 years, documenting my journey through my modest but growing YouTube channel. My converted 2012 Sprinter van, affectionately named Wanderlust, had become more home to me than any apartment I'd ever rented. After covering most of the Pacific Northwest and Southwest, I decided it was time to explore the South, with New Orleans being my next major destination. I'd heard countless stories about the Big Easy, its vibrant music scene, incredible food, and of course, the eerie legends that permeated every corner of the city. As a content creator always hunting for engaging material, I couldn't resist the allure of filming in some of the most allegedly haunted locations in America. My girlfriend Eliza had originally planned to join me for this leg of the journey, but a family emergency called her back home to Seattle just days before we were set to leave for Louisiana. Part of me was relieved. Things had been tense between us lately. The drive from Houston to New Orleans took about 5 hours, and I arrived as the sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the Mississippi River. The humidity hit me like a wall when I stepped out to stretch my legs at a rest stop just outside the city. The air felt heavy, almost alive against my skin, carrying the distant sounds of jazz and the sweet scent of magnolias mixed with something else I couldn't quite place, something old and slightly decayed. After grabbing a quick dinner at a local joint recommended by fellow Vanlifers online, I decided to drive around the city to get my bearings before finding a place to park for the night. The streets of the French Quarter were narrow and packed with tourists, even on a Tuesday night. The colonial architecture loomed overhead, balconies adorned with intricate ironwork and hanging plants that created shadows dancing in the glow of street lamps. I filmed some B-roll footage as I drove, capturing the essence of the city for my upcoming video. It was almost midnight when I started looking for a place to stealth camp. Most vanlifers know the drill. Walmart parking lots, rest stops, or industrial areas are usually safe bets. But I'd read online about a seemingly abandoned lot near the edge of the Garden District that other nomads had used without issue. According to the forums, it was tucked away enough to avoid unwanted attention, but close enough to walk to interesting sights. Perfect for my needs. The lot was partially hidden behind an old brick building that appeared to be undergoing renovation. A chain-link fence surrounded most of it, but there was an opening large enough for my van to slip through. Once inside, I could see 3 other vehicles. 2 seemed long abandoned, and 1 was a dusty RV with no signs of current habitation. The ground was uneven and covered with patches of wild grass pushing through cracked concrete. Spanish moss hung from the branches of a massive oak tree at the far corner, swaying gently in the evening breeze. I parked Wanderlust facing the exit, a habit I developed early in my travels. Always have an escape route, a lesson my father, a former park ranger, had drilled into me since childhood. After turning off the engine, I sat for a moment, listening to the sounds of the city, distant music, occasional laughter, and the hum of traffic. But there was something else too, a subtle discord in the urban symphony. A low, rhythmic thumping that seemed to come from beneath the ground itself. I shrugged it off as some distant club music and began my nightly routine, closing the blackout curtains, preparing a light snack, and editing some footage on my laptop. Just as I was about to call it a night, my phone pinged with a notification. It was a comment on my latest Instagram post. That's not a safe place. Leave before midnight. The username was a string of random numbers and letters. I checked the time, 11:47 p.m. A chill ran down my spine despite the lingering heat of the Louisiana night. I tried to dismiss the cryptic comment as a prank or a confused follower, but something about it gnawed at me. The thumping sound I'd noticed earlier seemed to grow more pronounced, like a heartbeat beneath the earth. I pulled back one of my curtains to peer outside. The lot appeared unchanged, bathed in the sickly yellow glow of a distant street lamp. The other vehicles remained still and silent. Yet something felt different. The air inside my van had grown noticeably colder despite the humid night. My journalistic instincts kicked in, and I decided to do a quick search about the area where I'd parked. Using my hotspot, I pulled up information about the Garden District and began scrolling through local history pages. What I found made my blood run cold. The lot I was parked on had once been part of a larger property belonging to Madame Delphine LaLaurie, one of the most notorious figures in New Orleans history. In the 1830s, she had tortured and killed numerous slaves in her mansion just blocks away. After a fire revealed her atrocities, she fled the city, but rumors persisted that she had buried some of her victims in various properties she owned throughout the area. The thumping sound intensified, now unmistakably rhythmic, like someone pounding on a door demanding entry. I checked my watch again, 11:58 p.m. The warning echoed in my mind, leave before midnight. I should have listened to my instincts and driven away immediately, but curiosity has always been my downfall. Instead, I grabbed my camera and night vision attachment. If something strange was happening, it could make for compelling content. Besides, I'd encountered plenty of unsettling situations during my travels and had always emerged with nothing more than a good story to tell. Outside the van, the air felt even more oppressive. The temperature had dropped at least 15 degrees since I'd parked, creating an unnatural fog that hugged the ground in patches. The moonlight filtered through the branches of the oak tree, casting finger-like shadows across the lot. The thumping had stopped the moment I stepped outside, replaced by an eerie silence. Even the distant sounds of the city seemed muffled, as if this small patch of land existed in its own bubble, disconnected from the world around it. I swept my camera across the lot, the night vision revealing details invisible to my naked eye. The abandoned vehicles looked more decrepit through the lens, their metal surfaces pitted and rusted in patterns that almost resembled faces frozen in anguish. As I approached the massive oak tree, I noticed markings carved into its trunk, symbols I didn't recognize, but which seemed deliberately placed. Some looked fresh, others weathered by time. Among them was one that stood out, a crude door with an X slashed through it. The ground beneath the tree appeared disturbed, the wild grass flattened in a perfect circle about 6 feet in diameter. I knelt down to examine it closer, pressing my hand against the soil. It felt warm, almost hot to the touch, despite the chilled air. And there was something else, a vibration running through the earth, subtle but undeniable. I started digging with my hands, compelled by a curiosity I couldn't explain. The soil gave way easily, too easily, as if it had been recently turned. My fingers brushed against something solid just a few inches below the surface. Heart racing, I cleared away more dirt to reveal what looked like a small wooden box, ornately carved with the same symbols I'd seen on the tree. Something told me I shouldn't open it, but my hand moved almost of its own accord, lifting the tarnished brass latch. Inside was a key, ancient and rusted, but with a peculiar sheen that caught the moonlight. And beneath it, a yellowed piece of paper with words written in faded ink. The door opens both ways. Just as I read those words, my phone alarm chimed. It was midnight. The thumping sound returned with sudden, terrible force, no longer coming from beneath the ground, but from inside my van. I whipped around to see Wanderlust rocking violently, its windows fogging from the inside. Through the condensation on the driver's side window, I could make out what looked like a handprint, impossibly large and pressed flat against the glass. Then another appeared beside it, and another. I stood frozen, the wooden box still in my trembling hands, watching in horror as more handprints appeared on every window of my van. They seemed to multiply by the second, overlapping one another in a frenzied pattern. The vehicle rocked more violently now, as if dozens of people were thrashing around inside. But that was impossible. I had locked it when I stepped out. I was the only one with the keys. The night air grew even colder, my breath forming clouds in front of my face despite the Louisiana climate. The distant sounds of the city had completely vanished now, replaced by an unnatural silence broken only by the creaking metal of my van and a low, guttural moaning that seemed to emanate from the ground beneath my feet. I took a step back, then another, my mind racing for a rational explanation. Perhaps locals playing a prank on the out-of-towner? A hallucination from some unknown gas leaking in the area? As I backed away, my heel caught on something, sending me sprawling backward onto the hard ground. The wooden box flew from my hands, the key tumbling out and landing with a dull thud in the dirt. In that instant, everything stopped. The van ceased its violent movement, the handprints faded from the windows, and the moaning silenced. The sudden stillness was almost more terrifying than the chaos of moments before. With shaking hands, I retrieved my phone to use as a flashlight, illuminating what had tripped me. It wasn't a root or stone as I'd expected, but a rusted metal ring protruding from the ground. As I directed the beam around me, I realized with growing dread that there were more of these rings arranged in a circle, each about 3 feet apart. They hadn't been visible earlier, I was certain of it. In the center of this circle lay the key that had fallen from the box, glinting with an unnatural light that didn't match the beam of my phone. Some primal instinct screamed at me to run, to get as far away as possible, but my documentary filmmaker's curiosity kept me rooted in place. I picked up my camera, which had fallen nearby, and began recording. Through the night vision lens, I could see that the ground within the circle of metal rings had changed texture. No longer dirt and patchy grass, but something that resembled packed clay, smooth and uniform, with strange markings etched across its surface that glowed faintly in the infrared light. As I zoomed in on these markings, the view through my camera suddenly distorted, the image twisting and stretching before resolving into something else entirely. Instead of the empty lot, I was looking at what appeared to be a basement or cellar, stone walls lined with rusted chains and implements I didn't want to identify. The floor was dirt, darkened with what could only be ancient bloodstains. And standing in the center, looking directly into the camera, directly at me, was a woman in antebellum clothing, her face pale and aristocratic, her smile revealing teeth filed to points. I lowered the camera with a gasp, and the vision vanished. The lot returned to normal, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The key at the center of the circle began to move on its own, rotating slowly until it pointed directly at my van. A gust of wind swept through the lot, carrying with it whispered voices speaking words I couldn't understand, but somehow knew were names. Dozens of names recited in a terrible litany. The back doors of my van suddenly burst open with such force that one of the hinges snapped. The interior lights flickered on, revealing that my carefully organized living space had been completely ransacked. Cabinets hung open, bedding was shredded, and my equipment scattered. But what turned my blood to ice was the message scrawled across the back wall, in what looked horribly like dried blood. "We need a new vessel." A hand, withered, gray, and impossibly elongated, emerged from beneath my bed platform, its fingers scraping against the metal floor of the van. Then another appeared beside it. I heard a sound like cracking joints as something began to pull itself into view. That was when I finally broke free from my paralysis and ran. My feet pounded against the uneven ground as I sprinted toward the gap in the chain-link fence, the only exit from this nightmare. Behind me, I heard a cacophony of sounds, splintering wood, tearing metal, and that same guttural moaning, now rising to a fever pitch. I dared not look back, focusing only on the narrow opening that promised escape. 20 yards, 10 yards, 5. Just as I reached the fence, the ground beneath me shifted. What had been solid earth seconds before suddenly gave way like quicksand, swallowing my right leg up to the knee. I fell forward, grabbing the chain link to keep from sinking further. The metal was ice cold against my palms despite the humid night, and it vibrated with the same rhythmic thumping I'd heard earlier, like a massive heartbeat. Panic gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. I pulled myself forward, dragging my trapped leg through what felt like hands grasping at my ankle, trying to pull me deeper. Something tore, my jeans or my skin. I couldn't tell through the adrenaline. Finally free, I tumbled through the gap in the fence onto the sidewalk beyond. The streetlights above me flickered and dimmed, as if whatever force ruled that accursed lot was attempting to extend its reach. I scrambled to my feet and looked back. My van, my home for the past 2 years, was now surrounded by a swirling mist that seemed to glow from within. Through the open doors, I could see movement, dark figures passing back and forth, their forms elongated and distorted like shadows cast by a fire. My equipment, my clothes, my life, everything was in that van. But there was no way in hell I was going back for any of it. As I watched in horror, the massive oak tree began to move, its branches twisting downward like tentacles reaching for my vehicle. The roots tore free from the earth with a sound like screaming, pulling up chunks of concrete and soil. The entire tree seemed to fold in on itself, bending in ways that defied nature. its trunk splitting open to reveal a hollow core filled with a pulsing red light. I turned and ran blindly down the street, my only thought to put as much distance as possible between myself and that place. I nearly collided with a group of tourists turning the corner, their laughter dying instantly when they saw my face. One of them, a middle-aged woman in a floral dress, grabbed my arm. "My God, what happened to you?" she asked, her eyes wide with concern. I couldn't form coherent words, just pointed back the way I had come. When the group looked, their expressions changed from concern to confusion. The woman's husband stepped forward. "There's nothing there, buddy. Just an empty lot." I whirled around, certain he was wrong. But where the lot should have been, where my van had stood moments before, there was indeed nothing but an overgrown patch of land surrounded by a rusted fence with no trespassing signs. No oak tree, no vehicles, no evidence of the horror I had just witnessed. "But my van, my things," I stammered, my voice breaking. The tourists exchanged glances, clearly deciding I was either drunk or mentally unstable. The husband pressed a $20 bill into my hand, murmuring something about getting a taxi home. They quickened their pace and continued down the street, throwing concerned glances over their shoulders until they disappeared around the next corner. I stood there trembling, trying to process what had happened. My phone was gone, left behind in the lot along with everything else I owned. My right leg throbbed with pain, and when I finally looked down, I saw that my jeans were torn and stained with something dark that wasn't entirely blood. Embedded in my calf was what appeared to be a shard of yellowed bone. A police car cruised slowly down the street, and I flagged it down desperately. The officer who stepped out regarded me with a mixture of suspicion and routine concern. I tried to explain what had happened, but with each word, I could see his expression hardening into disbelief. When I insisted on showing him the lot, he reluctantly agreed, perhaps only to humor what he perceived as a disturbed individual. We approached the gap in the fence where I had escaped just minutes earlier. The officer shone his flashlight across the empty space, revealing nothing but overgrown weeds and scattered trash. No tree, no van, no strange markings or metal rings. "Sir, have you taken any substances tonight?" the officer asked, his hand resting casually on his holster. "I swear I'm not on anything," I insisted, my voice cracking with desperation. My van was right there. Everything I owned was in it. I pointed to where Wanderlust should have been, but the beam of the officer's flashlight revealed only overgrown weeds and debris. The massive oak tree, with its twisted branches and exposed roots, was nowhere to be seen. The officer's radio crackled to life with a burst of static, followed by a dispatcher's voice requesting assistance at a location several blocks away. He gave me a long, evaluating look before responding to the call. "Listen, there's a shelter 3 blocks down on Perdido Street. They might have a bed for you tonight." He handed me a card with an address scribbled on the back. I'd get that leg looked at too. As he walked back to his cruiser, I heard him mutter something about another one into his radio. The patrol car pulled away, leaving me alone on the sidewalk, clutching the card in my trembling hand. I glanced back at the empty lot one more time and noticed something I'd missed before, a small plaque mounted on the brick wall of the adjacent building, partially hidden by ivy. I approached cautiously and brushed away the leaves to read the tarnished bronze marker. Site of the Lalaurie Slave Quarters, demolished 1874. May they rest in peace. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the night air. I remembered the names I'd heard whispered on the wind. Were those the victims who never found peace? The bone fragment in my leg throbbed, as if in response to my thoughts. With nowhere else to go, I limped toward the address on the card. The shelter was a converted church with Gothic architecture that loomed ominously against the night sky. A tired-looking volunteer at the front desk barely glanced at me as I signed in under a false name. I couldn't explain why, but I felt a desperate need to hide my identity. The dormitory-style room held a dozen cots, most occupied by sleeping forms. The volunteer directed me to an empty bed in the corner and handed me a threadbare towel and a small plastic bag containing toiletries. I thanked him and made my way to the shower, eager to clean the dirt and blood from my body. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of the communal bathroom, I finally got a clear look at my injuries. The wound on my calf was deep, the edges ragged where I had pulled free from whatever had grabbed me. I carefully extracted the bone fragment, which was about the size of my thumbnail and curved like a portion of a finger. As I held it under the water to clean it, the surface began to change, darkening to a deep red before crumbling into dust that swirled down the drain. When I emerged from the shower, a man was sitting on the cot next to mine. He was elderly, with skin so dark it seemed to absorb the dim light of the room, and eyes clouded by cataracts that gave them a milky appearance. He nodded to me as I approached. "You've been to the lot," he said. It wasn't a question. I sank onto my cot, too exhausted to be surprised. "How did you know?" "They always come here after," he replied, his voice a low rumble. "Been happening since I was a boy. Every few years, someone parks there thinking it's just an empty piece of land. By morning, they're gone, them and whatever they came in. But sometimes, someone gets away." He nodded toward my injured leg. "They marked you, though? Took a piece of you to replace what you took from them." "The key," I whispered, remembering the object I'd found in the wooden box. The old man's cloudy eyes seemed to focus suddenly, fixing on me with unexpected intensity. "You found the key, and you're still here? That ain't never happened before." Before I could ask what he meant, a commotion erupted at the front of the shelter. Raised voices, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching the dormitory. The door burst open, and 2 police officers entered, accompanied by the volunteer from the front desk who pointed directly at me. "That's him," the volunteer said. "Came in about 20 minutes ago." The officers approached my cot, their expressions grim. "Thaddeus Mercer?" one of them asked. I nodded, too stunned to deny it. "We need you to come with us to answer some questions about a vehicle registered in your name." "You found my van?" Hope surged through me. The officers exchanged a glance. A 2012 Sprinter van was discovered in the Mississippi River near the Algiers ferry terminal an hour ago. Fishermen reported seeing it drive directly into the water at high speed. My blood ran cold. "That's impossible." I wasn't. "A body was recovered from the driver's seat," the officer continued, cutting me off. "Male, approximately your age and build. The face." He hesitated. "The face was unidentifiable, but the wallet contained your Oregon driver's license." The room began to spin around me. On my cot, where I had placed the shelter's toiletry bag, now sat a small wooden box, the same one I had found in the lot. Its lid was open, revealing a space that was impossibly deep, a void that seemed to extend forever. From within that darkness, I heard the thumping sound again, the rhythmic heartbeat that had started this nightmare. The old man beside me saw it too. He crossed himself and began to chant something in a language I didn't recognize. The officers, following my gaze, saw nothing but the plastic toiletry bag. "Mr. Mercer, you need to come with us now," the officer said, his hand moving to his holster. As they led me from the shelter in handcuffs, I caught one last glimpse of the old man. He was watching me with those cloudy eyes, his expression a mixture of pity and fear. His lips formed words I somehow understood despite never having heard the language before. "They have your face now. They'll wear it to find others." In the police car, as we drove past the empty lot where everything had begun, I saw my van, Wanderlust, parked exactly where I had left it. Through the windows, I could make out a figure in the driver's seat. A figure with my face, grinning with teeth filed to points, hands pressed against the glass leaving prints that steamed in the night air. As we passed, it started the engine and pulled away, heading toward the highway that led out of New Orleans. The officers saw nothing, of course. To them, the lot remained empty, its secrets hidden behind a veil I had inadvertently torn open. In the rearview mirror, I watched as the gap in the fence sealed itself, chain links twisting together like living things. The last thing I saw before we turned the corner was a sapling pushing up through the concrete, an oak tree beginning its growth anew, ready to stand sentinel over the horrors buried beneath it. My name is Thaddeus Mercer, and I've been held in psychiatric observation at Central Louisiana State Hospital for 3 months now. The police couldn't explain how I survived a car crash that should have killed me, or why the body pulled from the river had my identification, but fingerprints that matched no known records. They don't believe my story, of course. No one does. But sometimes, late at night, I hear a familiar engine idling outside my window. And on the visitor's log at the front desk, I've seen my own signature, written in a hand identical to mine, alongside a note. "Coming to take him home soon." My name is Valerie Winters, 28 years old, originally from Tucson, Arizona. The desert heat and suburban sprawl had always felt suffocating to me, which is why I'd saved every penny from my graphic design job to buy and convert a 1994 Econoline van I named Seaside. 3 months ago, I quit my job, said goodbye to my worried parents and skeptical older brother Marcus, and hit the road heading east. My plan was simple: travel the country, document small coastal towns for my blog, Tides and Travels, and finally live the free-spirited life I'd been dreaming about since college. After exploring the Carolinas and spending 2 weeks in Massachusetts, I decided to venture further north into Maine. October had just begun, and I'd heard the fall foliage in New England was something everyone should experience at least once. My Instagram followers had been growing steadily, nothing viral, but enough to bring in some ad revenue to supplement my savings. My most recent post about a quaint lighthouse in Gloucester had performed particularly well, encouraging me to seek out more remote, picturesque locations to feature. That's how I found myself driving towards Sleepy Point, Maine, a tiny fishing community nestled between jagged cliffs and dense pine forests, about 30 miles from Bar Harbor. It wasn't on any tourist maps, which made it perfect for my content. I discovered it through an obscure travel forum where someone mentioned its untouched beauty and peculiar local customs. The post was years old, with no replies, but included a few stunning photos of mist-covered coves and Victorian houses perched precariously on rocky outcroppings. The drive into town was exactly as atmospheric as I'd hoped. A light rain had started to fall, creating a silvery curtain through which the ancient pines loomed like watchful sentinels. My windshield wipers squeaked rhythmically as I navigated the increasingly narrow and winding coastal road. Cell service had disappeared about 10 miles back, but my offline GPS still showed the route. The sun was setting early, as it tends to do in October this far north, casting long shadows across the weathered asphalt. As I rounded a sharp bend, Sleepy Point finally came into view below, a collection of white and gray buildings clustered around a natural harbor, fishing boats bobbing gently in the protected waters. A single church spire rose above the rest, its bell tower just visible through the low-hanging clouds. The scene was so perfectly New England that I pulled over to take a few photos, already mentally composing the blog post I would write. I drove slowly into town, noting the curious absence of people despite it being only around 5:30 in the evening. The main street featured a handful of businesses, a general store, a post office, a diner with a flickering open sign, and a small museum with Sleepy Point Historical Society painted in faded letters above the door. What caught my attention most was how well-preserved everything looked, almost too perfect, like a movie set of a coastal town rather than a living, breathing community. After grabbing a quick coffee and sandwich at the diner, where the elderly waitress had given me an oddly intense stare but few words, I decided to find a place to park for the night. The town had no hotels that I could see, and I preferred sleeping in Seaside anyway. Most coastal towns had ordinances against overnight parking near beaches or in public lots, but I'd gotten good at finding inconspicuous spots where I wouldn't be disturbed. Just as dusk was deepening into true darkness, I found what seemed like the perfect location, a gravel turnout overlooking a small, secluded cove about a mile outside of town. It appeared to be an abandoned scenic viewpoint, with a weather-beaten wooden sign describing the local flora and fauna. The spot was partially concealed by overgrown bushes, but offered a stunning view of the churning Atlantic below. I maneuvered Seaside into position, making sure I was level enough for a comfortable night's sleep. After my usual evening routine of brushing teeth, changing into sleep clothes, and updating my travel journal, I decided to step outside for a moment to enjoy the night air and perhaps capture the moonlight reflecting off the water. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a heavy mist that swirled around my ankles as I walked toward the cliff edge. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks below was hypnotic, almost drowning out a different, more unsettling noise, what sounded like distant chanting carried on the salt-laden breeze. I strained my ears, trying to pinpoint the source of the chanting. It seemed to come from somewhere along the shoreline below, though the dense fog made it impossible to see anything beyond the cliff's edge. Pulling my phone from my pocket, I tried to record the strange sound, but when I played it back, the audio contained nothing but static and the crash of waves. The longer I stood there, the more convinced I became that the voices, if that's what they were calling my name. Not Valerie, but something older, a name I'd never heard but somehow recognized deep in my bones. The rational part of my brain suggested that I was simply tired from driving all day, that the sounds were just the wind playing tricks on me. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, not just from the direction of the chanting, but from the dark woods behind my van as well. The temperature seemed to drop suddenly, my breath forming clouds in front of my face. October in Maine was cold, certainly, but this felt different, a chill that penetrated deeper than skin. Reluctantly, I retreated to the safety of my van, double-checking that all doors were locked before sliding into my bed. Through the skylight I'd installed above my sleeping area, I could see dark clouds racing across a sliver of moon. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of swimming in black water while pale hands reached up from the depths, trying to drag me down. I woke several times, each instance marked by the strange sensation that something was pressing against the metal walls of the van, testing for weaknesses. Morning brought fog so thick I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. After a quick breakfast of instant oatmeal, I decided to drive into town to find a cafe with Wi-Fi so I could research more about Sleepy Point's history. Something about this place had gotten under my skin, and my journalistic instincts were tingling. There was a story here, something beyond the picturesque facade the town presented. The local library was housed in a Victorian mansion on the edge of town, its gingerbread trim and widow's walk giving it a distinctly haunted appearance. Inside, the building was surprisingly warm and well-maintained, with modern computers available for public use. The librarian, a severe-looking woman with a shock of white hair pulled into a tight bun, regarded me with suspicion when I asked about local history. "Tourist?" she asked, the word carrying an undercurrent of disdain. "Travel blogger," I corrected with my best friendly smile. "I'm particularly interested in any unusual legends or historical events in Sleepy Point. The kind of stories that don't make it into official guidebooks." Something flickered in her pale eyes. Caution, perhaps, or calculation. After a moment's hesitation, she directed me to a section at the back of the library dedicated to local history. As I browsed the shelves, my attention was drawn to a thin volume bound in faded green cloth, its spine unmarked. When I pulled it out, I discovered it was a journal dated 1897, belonging to a woman named Eliza Blackwood. The journal detailed Eliza's life as the wife of a fisherman in Sleepy Point. The early entries were mundane accounts of domestic life, but about halfway through, the tone changed dramatically. Eliza wrote of a terrible storm that had claimed several fishing vessels, including her husband's. The town had mourned collectively, but 3 nights after the funerals, Eliza claimed to have seen her husband walking up from the beach, soaking wet but very much alive. Others reported similar sightings of the lost fisherman. According to Eliza, these weren't joyful reunions. The returned men were changed, cold to the touch, speaking little, and smelling strongly of the sea even after bathing. Most disturbing were their eyes, which she described as no longer windows to their souls, but rather to some vast, dark place beneath the waves. Within weeks, more townspeople began disappearing, only to return changed in the same manner. The final entries grew increasingly frantic and disjointed. Eliza wrote of a ceremony she witnessed on the beach during a new moon, where the changed townspeople gathered in a circle, chanting in a language she didn't recognize. At the center of their circle was what she described only as something that should not exist in God's creation. The journal ended abruptly with a warning. "They are not our loved ones returned. They are vessels, worn like ill-fitting clothes by things from the deep. And they are hungry for more." A chill ran down my spine as I closed the journal. The librarian was watching me from across the room, her expression unreadable. When our eyes met, she quickly looked away, busying herself with reorganizing already neat stacks of papers. Outside the library windows, the fog had grown even thicker, obscuring the street entirely. I checked my watch. Somehow, 3 hours had passed while I was reading, though it had felt like minutes. As I returned the journal to its shelf, I noticed a small newspaper clipping that had been used as a bookmark, yellowed with age but still legible. It was a missing persons report from 1938, describing a young photographer who had disappeared while staying in Sleepy Point. What caught my attention was the location where his camera equipment was found, a gravel turnout overlooking a cove, the exact spot where I had parked my van the night before. My hands trembled slightly as I slipped the newspaper clipping into my pocket. The coincidence was too specific to ignore. Back at the main desk, I tried to appear casual as I asked the librarian about the location. "That old viewpoint outside town? We don't recommend visitors park there," she said, her voice taking on an odd, sing-song quality. "The cliffs are unstable. Several accidents over the years. Tragic, really. Accidents like the photographer in 1938. I ventured. Her eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "You've been doing your research." "Yes, like him. And others. The sea claims what it wants around here." The way she emphasized the word sea sent another chill through me. I thanked her for her help and left quickly, feeling her gaze boring into my back as I pushed through the heavy oak doors into the fog-shrouded street. Inside my pocket, the newspaper clipping seemed to pulse with a cold energy against my thigh. The town felt different now as I walked back to where I'd parked my van near the diner. What had seemed quaint and picturesque yesterday now appeared secretive and watchful. The few locals I passed on the sidewalk stared a beat too long, their expressions blank, yet somehow hungry. I noticed now that many of them had the same pale, slightly bloated complexion, their clothing damp despite the lack of rain. At the diner, I ordered a coffee to go, needing the caffeine to clear my head and think rationally about what I'd learned. The same elderly waitress from yesterday served me, her movements stiff and her hands ice-cold when they brushed against mine as she handed over the cup. I tried to start a casual conversation, asking how long she'd lived in Sleepy Point. "Born and died here," she replied with a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. Before I could process her bizarre choice of words, she continued, "You're staying at the viewpoint, up by Blackwood Cove." It wasn't a question. My heart rate quickened. I'm thinking of moving on today. "The roads flood when the tide comes in," she said, glancing at an old clock on the wall. "High tide at 4:17 today. You'd best be gone before then, or stay another night." She leaned closer, her breath smelling strongly of salt and something rotting. "We love having visitors. Some even stay permanently." I left enough money on the counter to cover my coffee and quickly exited the diner. The fog had become so dense that I could barely see the storefronts across the street. Checking my phone, I found no signal, and my GPS app refused to load. It was just past noon. I had about 4 hours before high tide, assuming the waitress was telling the truth. Back at my van, I threw my few possessions that I'd taken out back inside and prepared to leave immediately. As I turned the key in the ignition, Seaside's engine coughed, sputtered, and died. I tried again with the same result. Popping the hood, I discovered the engine compartment was soaking wet, as if the van had been submerged in water. Impossible. It had been parked on dry land all morning. A knot of panic formed in my stomach as I frantically tried the ignition again and again. On the 5th attempt, the engine finally caught, emitting a sound more like gurgling than the healthy rumble I was accustomed to. I pulled away from the curb, heading for the road that had brought me into town, desperate to put Sleepy Point behind me. I hadn't gone more than a quarter mile when I saw the first floodwaters covering the road ahead. The waitress had mentioned flooding at high tide, but it was hours too early, and we were well above sea level here. I turned around, looking for another route out of town. Each road I tried was similarly blocked, not by normal flooding, but by seawater that seemed to be rising up from beneath the asphalt itself, bringing with it tangles of dark seaweed and small, scuttling creatures that disappeared into cracks in the pavement as my headlights swept over them. With growing dread, I realized I was being herded back toward Blackwood Cove, the only road remaining somewhat passable leading in that direction. As I reluctantly drove back toward my previous parking spot, I noticed movement in my rearview mirror, figures walking slowly up the middle of the road behind me, following my van. Though the fog obscured their features, their gait was wrong somehow, a rolling, waterlogged movement that reminded me of seaweed swaying in currents. At the viewpoint, I parked and locked myself in the van, trying desperately to come up with a plan. The cliff path was too dangerous to attempt on foot, especially in the fog. My only hope was that the flood waters would recede with the tide, allowing me to leave before nightfall. I tried the radio, hoping to catch a weather report or emergency broadcast, but received nothing but static overlaid with what sounded like distant chanting, the same voices I'd heard the night before. As sunset approached, bringing with it a premature darkness enhanced by the fog. I heard the first soft thumps against the outside of my van, gentle at first, like someone testing the metal, then growing more insistent. Through the condensation forming on my windows, I could make out dark figures surrounding Seaside, their outlines blurry and shifting as if they weren't quite solid. One pressed its face against my driver's side window, a woman's face, but wrong in fundamental ways. Her skin had the gray-green pallor of something long drowned, her eyes milky white with no visible pupils. Seawater dribbled from her mouth as she opened it in what might have been a smile, revealing teeth that had been filed to points like those of deep-sea predators. She tapped one elongated finger against the glass. The nail blackened and hardened into something more like a claw. "We've been waiting for you, Valerie," she said, her voice somehow perfectly clear through the metal and glass separating us. "The sea has been calling your true name. Don't you hear it?" The woman's words sent ice through my veins. I had never told anyone in town my name. My hand flew to the ignition key, turning it desperately while my other hand locked the doors, a futile gesture against whatever these creatures were. Seaside's engine sputtered and coughed, but refused to start. Water was now visibly seeping in through the van's floor seams, pooling around my feet despite the fact that I was parked on solid ground well above sea level. The figures continued their rhythmic thumping on the van's exterior, the sound keeping time with the waves crashing against the cliffs below. I grabbed my phone, hoping against hope that I might get even one bar of service, enough to call for help. The screen lit up, but instead of my usual home screen, it displayed an image I had never seen before, a strange, spiral symbol that seemed to move and pulse, drawing my gaze deeper into its center. I dropped the phone as if it had burned me. "The tide is rising, Valerie," the woman outside crooned, her voice taking on that same sing-song quality I'd heard from the librarian. "Soon the way will be open. You're the vessel we've been waiting for. So perfect, so empty." Something in her words triggered a memory. Eliza Blackwood's journal had mentioned vessels, bodies worn by things from the deep. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged across the van to my small storage compartment, pulling out the canister of bear spray I carried for emergencies. It wasn't much, but it was something. The thumping intensified, now accompanied by scratching sounds as their claws or nails dragged across the metal exterior. One of the rear windows cracked under the pressure, a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the glass. Water began to spray through the crack, carrying with it the unmistakable stench of rotting seaweed and decay. I needed to move, to run, but where? The road back to town was blocked by floodwaters and more of these creatures. The only other option was the narrow path leading down the cliff to the cove below, treacherous under normal circumstances, potentially fatal in the fog and growing darkness. Yet staying meant certain death, or worse, becoming whatever these things were. Making my decision, I grabbed my small emergency backpack, stuffing in the bear spray, a flashlight, my pocket knife, and the journal page I'd torn out before leaving the library. The window behind me shattered inward, followed by a grasping, elongated hand with webs of glistening skin between the fingers. I slashed at it with my knife, and the creature recoiled with a hiss that sounded like waves retreating over pebbles. That momentary distraction was all I needed. I lunged toward the passenger door opposite the creatures, threw it open, and bolted into the fog. Behind me, I heard splashing and that terrible chanting growing louder. I ran toward the cliff path, the beam of my flashlight barely penetrating the dense mist that seemed almost solid now, wrapping around me like wet cloth. The path down to the cove was steep and slippery, loose rocks sliding under my feet with each step. I had to slow down despite the sounds of pursuit, knowing that one wrong step could send me plummeting to the rocks below. Halfway down, I paused to catch my breath and listen. The chanting continued, but it seemed to be coming from both above and below me now. They were on the beach as well, waiting. As if confirming my fears, the fog momentarily thinned, revealing the scene below. On the small strip of sand that appeared during low tide, a circle of figures stood facing the sea, their arms raised in supplication. At the center of their circle was something that made my blood freeze, a shape rising from the water, massive and glistening, with too many limbs moving in ways that defied anatomical logic. It was only partially emerged, most of its bulk still concealed beneath the dark waters, but what I could see was enough to send my mind reeling with primal terror. The path forked ahead of me, one branch continuing down to the beach where the ceremony was taking place, the other traversing horizontally along the cliff face toward what appeared to be the dark mouth of a cave. Without hesitation, I chose the cave, hoping it might offer a hiding place or, better yet, another way out. The cave entrance was narrow, forcing me to turn sideways to squeeze through. Inside, the air was surprisingly warm and thick with humidity, the stone walls slick with moisture that seemed to pulse with a faint bioluminescence. My flashlight revealed a tunnel leading deeper into the cliff, its floor worn smooth as if by centuries of use. The sound of my pursuers grew closer. They had discovered my choice of path. With no other options, I continued deeper into the cave system, the tunnel gradually widening into a larger chamber. When I saw there stopped me in my tracks. The walls were covered in ancient carvings, symbols matching the spiral that had appeared on my phone, alongside crude depictions of human figures bowing before monstrous shapes emerging from stylized waves. At the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, its surface stained dark with what could only be centuries of blood. Arranged around it were objects that turned my stomach. Withered organs preserved in jars of cloudy liquid, bones carved with the same spiral symbols, and photographs. Recent photographs of missing persons, their faces arranged in a circular pattern around one central image. My own face stared back at me from that central photograph, not a picture I had ever taken, but one that showed me sleeping in my van the night before. They had been watching me, planning for my arrival. This wasn't random. I had been called here, chosen for some specific purpose. The chanting outside grew louder, and with it came the sound of water, not the distant crash of waves, but the immediate gurgle of flooding. I turned my flashlight toward the tunnel entrance to see seawater pouring in, rising rapidly. The cave was flooding, and I was trapped. Frantically, I searched the chamber for another exit, my flashlight beam dancing across the ancient carvings. There, partially hidden behind the altar, was another tunnel, smaller than the first. Without options, I squeezed through the opening just as the floodwaters reached my ankles. This passage was tighter, forcing me to crouch and then crawl as it narrowed further. The sounds of pursuit faded behind me, replaced by the thundering of my own heart and the rush of blood in my ears. The tunnel began to slope upward, giving me hope that it might lead to safety. After what felt like hours of crawling through increasingly tight spaces, scraping my elbows and knees raw on the rough stone, I saw a glimmer of light ahead. I emerged onto a narrow ledge halfway up the cliff face, on the opposite side of the headland from where I had entered. Below me, the Atlantic crashed against jagged rocks, and above, the cliff continued another 30 feet to the top. The fog had thinned somewhat, allowing me to see the faint outline of a road in the distance. A different road than the one that had brought me to Sleepy Point. There was a narrow path leading upward, precarious but passable. With no choice but to climb, I began the treacherous ascent, using roots and rock outcroppings as handholds. The wind had picked up, threatening to tear me from my fragile perch with each gust. Below, the sea seemed to churn with unnatural fury, as if angered by my escape attempt. I had nearly reached the top when I heard it. That same sing-song voice, now directly above me. I looked up to see the librarian standing at the cliff's edge, looking down at me with those pale, empty eyes. She wasn't alone. Flanking her were other townspeople I recognized, the diner waitress, the gas station attendant, and others I had passed on the street. "The sea doesn't surrender what it claims, Valerie," the librarian called down, her voice carrying easily despite the wind. "It's been waiting for you for so long. A perfect vessel for what needs to come ashore." I clung to the cliff face, my muscles screaming with fatigue, trapped between the impossible creatures above and the churning dark waters below. The librarian's words echoed in my mind. A perfect vessel. Whatever ancient horror waited in the depths wanted me specifically, but why? What made me different from the photographer in 1938 or any other unfortunate traveler who had passed through Sleepy Point? "Your bloodline," the librarian said, as if reading my thoughts. "Didn't you know? Your grandmother's maiden name was Blackwood. Eliza was your ancestor, the one who almost exposed us all those years ago." A cold shock ran through me that had nothing to do with the wind or spray. My grandmother had indeed been from Maine originally, though she'd moved west long before I was born. She had rarely spoken of her family history, and when she did, it was always vague. Could it be true? Was I reading Eliza Blackwood's journal because some part of me had been drawn to it, recognizing my own heritage? The blood that resisted calls to its kin across generations, the waitress added, her voice bubbling as if her lungs were filled with liquid. The sea has been patient. So very patient. My mind raced, searching for options. The cliff was too steep to climb around them. Going back down would lead me straight into the floodwaters filling the cave system. My only chance was to somehow get past them to the road beyond. As I considered my next move, I noticed something. The townsfolk were careful to stay back from the very edge of the cliff. They wanted me, but they seemed unwilling or unable to come too close to retrieve me themselves. You need me to come willingly. I called up, testing my theory. That's why you haven't just taken me. Whatever ritual you're performing requires a willing sacrifice. A ripple of discomfort passed through the gathered crowd. The librarian's face contorted in a grimace that might have been intended as a smile. Clever, like your grandmother, but not clever enough. We don't need you willing, just intact. And time is on our side. The tide continues to rise. Soon you'll have no choice but to climb up to us or be swept away. As if emphasizing her point, a massive wave crashed against the rocks below, sending spray so high it dampened my jeans. She was right. The tide was coming in rapidly, unnaturally fast. Already the water was reaching higher up the cliff than should have been possible, almost as if it were deliberately trying to reach me. My hand brushed against the pocket of my jacket, feeling the crinkle of the journal page I'd torn out and saved. Something Eliza had written came back to me, a detail about how the changed townsfolk avoided pure salt. Not seawater, which had been corrupted by whatever entity they served, but pure, crystalline salt. It was a desperate gamble, but I had nothing to lose. I reached into my backpack, finding the small container of sea salt I kept for cooking in the van. With shaking hands, I opened it and scattered a handful on the narrow ledge of rock directly above me, right where they would need to step to reach down. The reaction was immediate and violent. The townsfolk recoiled, hissing and spitting. Where the salt had touched the rock, it seemed to burn with a faint blue light. It wouldn't last long. Already the wind was blowing some of it away, but it might give me the opening I needed. Summoning the last of my strength, I pulled myself upward, scrambling over the salted ledge and rolling onto the grass at the top of the cliff. The townsfolk had retreated several paces, forming a loose semicircle that still blocked my path to the distant road. Behind them, I could see more figures emerging from the fog, their movements betraying their inhuman nature. I reached for the bear spray in my backpack, pointing it at the closest of them, the librarian. "Let me pass," I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady despite my exhaustion and terror. She cocked her head at an impossible angle, her neck bending in a way human vertebrae simply couldn't allow. "You don't understand what an honor this is, child of Blackwood. To be the vessel that brings the deep one fully ashore after centuries of waiting. Your name will be spoken in reverence by the new world that emerges." "I'll take a hard pass on that honor," I replied, backing away slowly, trying to angle toward a gap in their formation. Without warning, the ground beneath my feet shifted and cracked. What I had taken for solid earth was actually a thin crust over a sinkhole, deliberately concealed and weakened. I plunged downward, managing to catch the edge with one hand while the bear spray tumbled from my grasp into the darkness below. I hung there, fingers slowly losing their grip on the rain-slicked grass, looking up into the expressionless faces of the townsfolk. They made no move to help me up or push me down. They simply watched, waiting for my strength to give out. Below me was not the sea as I had expected, but a deep pit lined with the same spiral carvings I had seen in the cave. At the bottom, barely visible in the gloom, something moved, pale, segmented limbs shifting restlessly around a central mass. In that moment of pure terror, something unexpected happened. The newspaper clipping I had taken from the library slipped from my pocket, falling into the pit. As it fluttered downward, the fragment of paper burst into blue flames, illuminating the horror below in stark detail. The creature in the pit recoiled from the light with a shriek that reverberated through my bones. The townsfolk reacted as well, clutching their heads in apparent pain. I realized then what I was seeing. The newspaper wasn't just a clipping. It was a page from Eliza Blackwood's journal, containing words of power she had recorded. Words meant to weaken the entity and its servants. With renewed determination, I managed to pull myself up onto solid ground. The townsfolk were still disoriented, some of them dropping to their knees as the blue flames in the pit grew brighter. I took advantage of their distraction to sprint past them toward the road, not daring to look back. I ran until my lungs burned, the sound of pursuit growing fainter behind me. The fog thinned the further I got from Sleepy Point, as if it were tied to the influence of the entity beneath the waves. When I finally reached the road, a proper highway with actual traffic, I flagged down the first car I saw, a middle-aged couple who took one look at my bedraggled, terrified state and immediately offered help. As we drove away, I glanced back one last time. Through the rear window, I could see figures standing at the edge of the fog bank, watching but not following. The border of their influence, perhaps. The couple tried to ask what had happened, but I couldn't find words to explain. Instead, I asked if I could borrow their phone to call my brother. That was 3 weeks ago. I'm staying with Marcus now in Boston while I try to make sense of what happened in Sleepy Point. I've researched my family history extensively, confirming what the librarian told me. My grandmother was indeed a Blackwood from coastal Maine, though she had changed her name when she moved west, apparently attempting to sever all connections to her past. I found an old photo album in my parents' attic containing a single picture of my great-great-grandmother, Eliza Blackwood herself, the author of the journal. The resemblance between us is uncanny, explaining perhaps why I was chosen as the perfect vessel. Whatever entity dwells beneath Sleepy Point has been waiting for Blackwood blood to return for generations. I've tried reporting what happened to the authorities, but as expected, they found nothing. According to official records, there hasn't been a town called Sleepy Point in Maine since 1907, when it was abandoned after a devastating storm. The road I traveled to get there now allegedly leads to a nature preserve, with no turnoff to any coastal community. My van, my equipment, my documentation, all gone. I have nothing to prove my story except the salt container I still had in my pocket and the few scratches on my phone where that spiral symbol had appeared. Sometimes the screen still flickers, showing fragments of that hypnotic pattern before returning to normal. Last night, I woke to the sound of waves crashing outside my brother's apartment. Impossible, given that we're 5 miles from the harbor. The salt I now keep scattered across my windowsill was glowing faintly blue in the darkness. On the glass, visible briefly before evaporating like morning dew, were handprints, elongated, with webbing between the fingers. They found me once. They can find me again. And somewhere out there, wearing the faces of the people of Sleepy Point, they're waiting for another traveler to arrive, another soul seeking picturesque views and solitude, another vessel for whatever ancient horror dwells beneath the waves. But I made a promise to myself. I won't let another person fall victim if I can help it. I've started a new blog, one that maps places to avoid, warning signs to watch for, and protective measures against things most people don't believe exist. It doesn't have many followers yet, but it's growing. My first post was titled, "The Tide Always Rises in Sleepy Point." If it saves even one person from the fate I narrowly escaped, it will be worth the nightmares I now live with. Because the warning in Eliza's journal wasn't just about Sleepy Point. It was about dozens of coastal towns, all serving the same masters beneath the waves, all waiting for the right vessels to help bring something ancient back into our world. And the tide, as they reminded me, is always rising. The van's engine hums softly as I pull into a quiet field just off Emmitsburg Road in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm Aloan Kessler, 29 years old, from Asheville, North Carolina. The air feels heavy, like it's carrying the weight of something ancient. I've been chasing freedom on the road for 6 months, converting my old Sprinter van into a cozy home with a bed, a tiny stove, and fairy lights for charm. Tonight, though, the vibe is off. Gettysburg's history is no joke. 51,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or missing in 3 days back in 1863. I read about it before coming, but I didn't expect the place to feel so alive with it. The field I'm parked in is unmarked, just a grassy patch near Sachs-covered bridge. It's not a campsite, but I'm stealth camping to save cash. I sip chamomile tea, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. My van, nicknamed Wanderer, is my sanctuary, but tonight it feels like a fishbowl. The windows fog with my breath, and I wipe them clear, peering into the darkness. Gettysburg's got a reputation for ghosts, soldiers wandering the battlefields, their screams echoing through time. I laugh it off, but my chuckle sounds hollow. I'm alone, which usually suits me, but this place makes solitude feel like a mistake. I lock the doors, double-checking the deadbolt I installed myself. My phone's got no signal out here, just a weak bar that flickers in and out. Earlier today, I stopped at a diner in town. The waitress, a wiry woman named Margie with tired eyes, warned me about parking too far from civilization. Folks say the fields round here don't sleep, she said, refilling my coffee. I brushed it off as small-town superstition, but her words stick with me now. I've got a knack for ignoring red flags. Part of why I left Asheville after a messy breakup. New start, new roads, right? But as I crawl into my sleeping bag, the air feels thick, like it's watching me. I pull out my journal to jot down the day's adventures, but my pen hovers. Something's not right. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the van's roof vent. I tell myself it's just nature, but it sounds too rhythmic, like footsteps pacing. I'm not one for paranoia, but I can't shake the feeling I'm not alone. I grab my flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark, but it only shows grass and the distant outline of the bridge. My heart's thudding louder than it should. I've camped in remote spots before, deserts, forests, even sketchy rest stops, but this is different. It's like the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I turn off the light to save battery, plunging the van into blackness. I try to distract myself by thinking about tomorrow. I plan to visit the Battlefield Museum, maybe take a ghost tour for kicks. Gettysburg's big on that stuff. Tourists eat it up. But lying here, I'm second-guessing my itinerary. The locals at the diner talked about spectral soldiers and cursed grounds. One guy, an old vet named Clarence, swore he saw a figure in a tattered uniform vanish into the fog near Devil's Denver. I laughed it off then, but now I'm wondering if I should have listened. My van's walls feel thinner than usual, like they're made of paper instead of metal. I pull my sleeping bag tighter, trying to focus on the familiar creaks of wanderers settling. I've got a knife stashed under my pillow, a habit from too many true crime podcasts. It's silly, I know, but it helps me feel in control. The wind dies down, leaving an eerie silence. Then, faintly, I hear it, a low hum, like a voice carried on the breeze. It's not words, just a vibration that makes my skin prickle. I sit up, straining to listen. It's probably nothing, right? Just my imagination running wild in this creepy-ass town. But my gut's screaming otherwise. I decide to check my map, figuring I'll move closer to town if I can't shake this feeling. My phone's flashlight casts harsh shadows as I unfold the paper map I bought at the gas station. Gettysburg's a maze of battle sites and memorials, each marked with grim names: Bloody Angle, Slaughter Pen. I trace my finger to where I think I am, near Sachs Bridge. The map shows nothing unusual, just fields and a creek. But as I squint at the tiny print, I notice a handwritten note in the margin, scrawled in red ink. Don't stay past midnight. My stomach twists. Who wrote that? I tell myself it's a prank, some kid messing with tourists. But the hum outside grows louder, more distinct, like a chant from somewhere deep in the field. I'm not a believer in ghosts, but I've read about Gettysburg's hauntings, soldiers reliving their final moments, trapped in an endless loop of horror. I shake my head, trying to snap out of it. I'm just tired, that's all. I set an alarm for dawn, planning to pack up and head to a proper campground. But as I lie back down, the air feels colder, sharper, like it's pressing against me. The last thing I do before trying to sleep is check my van's battery monitor. It's at 80%, plenty for the night. But as I flick off the interior lights, the hum outside shifts into something else, a faint, rhythmic thud, like boots marching in unison. My breath catches. It's probably just a trick of the wind, or maybe a far-off car. But deep down, I know I'm lying to myself. Something's out there, and it's not just the ghosts of Gettysburg's past. It's something worse, something that feels disturbingly alive. The thudding outside my van fades, but my heart's still hammering like it's trying to break free. I'm alone in Kessler, holed up in Wanderer, my Sprinter van, parked in a field near Sachs covered bridge in Gettysburg. It's well past midnight now, and sleep's a lost cause. That weird hum I heard earlier? It's gone, but the silence is worse, thick, oppressive, like the air's daring me to move. I fumble for my phone, hoping for a signal to call someone, anyone, but the screen's still dead, no bars. Typical. I'm out here chasing freedom, but right now, it feels like I've driven straight into a horror movie set. I laugh nervously, but it's a shaky sound, swallowed by the van's walls. I grab my flashlight and shine it through the window again, half expecting to see nothing but grass. But the beam catches something, a faint glint, like metal, about 20 yards out. My stomach lurches. Could be trash, maybe a beer can left by some hiker. But it wasn't there before. I'm sure of it. I try to reason it away. My brain's just fried from reading too many ghost stories about Gettysburg's battlefields. This place is infamous for them. Soldiers' spirits wandering, reliving their gruesome ends. I shake my head, telling myself I'm not that guy from Blair Witch, freaking out over nothing. Still, my hands are clammy. I decide to check the van's locks again, just to feel like I'm doing something. The deadbolt's secure, but as I test it, the handle jiggles slightly, like it's loose. That's new. I installed it myself back in Asheville, and it was rock solid last week. I grab my screwdriver from the tool bag under the passenger seat, tightening the screws with shaky hands. The metal feels colder than it should, like it's been sitting in a freezer. I'm probably overthinking it, but this place is getting under my skin. I think about Margie, the diner waitress, and her warning about these fields. Should have listened, maybe. I crawl back to my bed, trying to talk myself down. I've got options: stay put till dawn or start the van and haul ass to town. The idea of driving now, in the pitch black, feels risky. These back roads are narrow, and I've heard stories of people getting stuck in ditches out here. Plus, Wanderer's got a quirky alternator. It's been acting up since Maryland. Last thing I need is to break down in the middle of nowhere. I decide to stick it out, but I keep my knife close, its weight under the pillow oddly comforting. I'm not paranoid, just prepared. That's what I tell myself. Then I hear it, a faint scratch, like nails dragging across the van's side. My breath catches, and I freeze, straining to listen. It's slow, deliberate, moving from the back door toward the driver's side. My mind races. Could be a branch, caught in the wind. But there's no wind now, not even a breeze. I flash back to a podcast I heard about skinwalkers, Navajo legends, sure, but some folks say similar creatures haunt battlefields, feeding off old pain. Gettysburg's got pain in spades. I shake the thought off, but the scratching stops right by my window, and my skin crawls with something disturbingly primal. I force myself to move, grabbing my flashlight again. I don't want to look, but I have to. I inch the curtain aside, just a sliver, and aim the beam outside. Nothing. Just empty field and the dark outline of Sachs Bridge in the distance. But as I shift the light, I catch that glint again, closer now, maybe 10 yards away. It's not a can. It's too big, too structured, like a buckle or a button, reflecting dully. My heart's in my throat. I'm tempted to start the van and bolt, but something tells me moving now would be a mistake, like I'd be playing into something's hands. I dig through my bag for my old Polaroid camera, a thrift store find I use for quirky road trip shots. If something's out there, maybe I can catch it on film, prove I'm not losing it. The camera is finicky, but I load a cartridge with trembling fingers. I aim through the window, snap a picture, and wait for it to develop. The image is blurry, but there's a shape, tall, humanoid, standing just beyond the glint. My mouth goes dry. It's probably just a tree, right? But trees don't move. And this shape, it's too sharp, too wrong. I shove the photo in my pocket, my hands shaking so bad I nearly drop it. I try to calm down, focusing on my breathing like some yoga guru. In, out, in, out. I think about my ex, Jasper, back in Asheville. He'd call me reckless for camping out here alone. He wasn't wrong, but I'm not about to admit that now. I check the van's battery monitor, still at 80%, but the screen flickers, like it's glitching. That's not good. I need power to start Wanderer if I decide to run. I consider firing up the engine to test it, but the thought of drawing attention makes my skin prickle. Whatever's out there, it feels like it's waiting for me to make a move. As I sit there, debating my next step, a new sound cuts through the silence, a low, guttural moan, like someone in pain. It's coming from the direction of the bridge, faint but unmistakable. My first thought is someone's hurt, maybe a hiker or a camper. But then I remember Clarence, the vet from the diner, talking about the moans of the fallen near Sachs Bridge. He said it's the soldiers, trapped in their final agony. My rational side screams it's just an animal, maybe a fox. But deep down, I know it's not. The moan grows louder, joined by another, and my blood runs cold. Something's coming closer, and I'm not sure I want to find out what. The moan outside my vent spikes into a wail, sharp and raw, like a scream torn from a dying throat. I'm alone in Kessler, frozen in Wanderer, my Sprinter van, parked in this cursed field near Sachs-covered bridge in Gettysburg. My hands grip the knife under my pillow, its blade useless against whatever's out there. The sound isn't human, not anymore. It's layered, like multiple voices crying out at once, and it's coming from all directions now. My heart's pounding so hard I can feel it in my ears. I want to believe it's just the wind or some prankster kids, but the air feels wrong, heavy with a horror I can't name. I'm alone, and that's never felt more dangerous than right now. I stuff the Polaroid in my pocket and crawl to the driver's seat, keeping low like I'm in some war movie. The van's dashboard is dark, but the battery monitor's still flickering at 80%. I try the ignition, just a quick turn to test it. Nothing. Not a click, not a sputter. My alternator's been iffy, but this is worse. Wanderer's dead. Panic claws at me. I'm stranded in a place where history bleeds into the present, where 1863's bloodshed still lingers. I think of the diner stories, ghostly regiments marching through fog, their bayonets gleaming. I didn't believe it then, but now I'm not so sure. I grab my flashlight and aim it out the windshield. The beam catches movement, shadows shifting just beyond the bridge, too tall and jerky to be human. My breath hitches. They're not shadows. They're figures, at least 3, moving in a jagged line. Their outlines are wrong, like they're wearing tattered uniforms, but their limbs bend at angles that make my stomach churn. I flash to a documentary about Gettysburg's ghosts, soldiers doomed to relive their deaths. But these things don't feel like ghosts. They feel alive, hungry, and disturbingly aware of me. I snap the flashlight off, hoping they didn't see the beam. My phone still got no signal, but I try texting 911 anyway. Typing, "Help, stuck near Sachs Bridge, something's out there." It won't send, but it makes me feel less helpless. I huddle in the driver's seat, clutching the knife, my eyes locked on the windshield. The wails have stopped, but now there's a new sound. Metal scraping metal, slow and deliberate, like a blade being sharpened. It's close, maybe 10 feet from the van. My mind races to the glint I saw earlier. Could it be a weapon? I picture a Civil War bayonet, rusted but sharp, held by something that shouldn't exist. I try to stay rational, but my thoughts are spiraling. I remember a true crime case from Asheville, where a hiker found a body in the woods, mutilated like it was torn apart by something inhuman. Gettysburg's got its own dark stories. Bodies never buried, left to rot in these fields. What if whatever's out there isn't just a ghost? What if it's something older, feeding on the pain soaked into this land? The scraping stops, and for a moment, I think it's over. Then something slams against the van's side, hard enough to rock it. I bite back a scream, my knife slipping from sweaty fingers. I scramble to pick up the blade, my hands shaking so bad I can barely grip it. The van's walls feel like they're closing in, trapping me in this horrifying nightmare. I think about bolting out the door, running for the bridge or the road, but the figures I saw are out there, waiting. I'm not stupid enough to think I can outrun them. My eyes dart to the Polaroid sticking out of my pocket. I pull it out, squinting in the dark. The shape's clearer now, a figure in a tattered coat, its face blurred but wrong, like it's missing pieces. My blood runs cold. I didn't take a second photo, but there's another developing in the camera. I grab the camera, my hands trembling as I pull out the new photo. It's me, inside the van, staring out the window. My face is pale, eyes wide with terror. But I didn't take this. Something else did. My stomach drops, and I shove the photo away, refusing to look at it. The air's colder now, like the van's turned into a freezer. My breath fogs, and I notice something new, faint handprints smudging the inside of the windshield. They weren't there before. I touch one, and it's warm, like it was just made. But I haven't touched the glass. The scraping starts again, circling the van now, slow and taunting. I hear a whisper, my name, hissed in a voice that's too low, too broken. Aloan. It's coming from outside, but it feels like it's inside my head, too. I clamp my hands over my ears, but it doesn't stop. I think of Margie's warning, Clarence's stories, the handwritten note on my map. This isn't just Gettysburg's ghosts. Something's hunting me, something that knows me. I slide to the floor, curling up behind the driver's seat, knife in hand. I'm not sure what's worse, the things outside or the fact that I'm starting to feel like they're already inside. Then, a new sound, footsteps, heavy and uneven, crunching toward the van. They stop right by the back door, and I hear a low chuckle, guttural and wrong. My heart's screaming at me to do something, anything, but I'm paralyzed. The door handle rattles, slow at first, then faster, like whatever's out there is testing it. I bite my lip to keep from screaming, tasting blood. The rattling stops, but I know it's not over. Something's watching, waiting, and I'm trapped in this metal coffin, with nowhere to hide and no way to fight what's coming. The back door handle stops rattling, but the silence is worse, like a predator holding its breath. I'm alone in Kessler, curled up in Wanderer, my van, in a field near Sachs-covered bridge in Gettysburg. My knife's in my hand, but it feels like a toy against whatever's out there. The air's so cold my teeth chatter, and those handprints on the windshield glow faintly, like they're mocking me. I can't stay here. My van's dead, my phone's useless, and those things, those twisted, not quite human figures, are circling closer. I grab my backpack, shoving in essentials, water, flashlight, the Polaroid with that horrifying image of me. I've got to run, even if it's a death wish. Staying means letting whatever's out there win. I inch toward the side door, heart pounding like a drum. The plan's simple. Sprint to Sachs Bridge, follow the creek to the main road, flag down help. Simple, but terrifying. I think of Gettysburg's ghost stories, soldiers' spirits dragging people into the fog. These things feel worse, like they're feeding on the battle's leftover horror. I crack the door, just enough to peek out. The field's dark, but I see them. 3 figures, hunched and jerking, maybe 30 yards away. Their heads turn toward me, and I swear their eyes glow, like embers in a dead fire. My stomach twists. I don't wait for them to move. I shove the door open and bolt. The grass is slick under my boots, and I nearly slip, my breath fogging in the freezing air. The bridge is maybe 100 yards off, its red frame barely visible. I hear them behind me, not running but gliding, their steps uneven but fast. My flashlight bobs, catching glints of metal, bayonets, maybe, or something worse. I think of a news story from years ago, a hiker in Gettysburg vanishing near this bridge, found days later with wounds no animal could make. I push harder, legs burning, lungs screaming. The bridge is closer, but so are they. A low growl hums through the air, like a warning. I hit the bridge, its wooden planks creaking under my weight. The creek below gurgles, but it sounds wrong, like it's choking. I risk a glance back. Big mistake. The figures are at the bridge's edge, their faces blurred but wrong, like they're stitched together from nightmares. One raises an arm, and I see it. A rusted bayonet, dripping with something dark. My blood runs cold. I sprint across, aiming for the tree line beyond. I've hiked enough to know cover's my best shot. But as I reach the far side, my foot catches on a loose plank, and I crash hard, my knife skittering into the dark. Pain shoots through my ankle, but I scramble up, limping now. The figures are on the bridge, their steps shaking the wood. I dive into the trees, branches clawing my face. My flashlight's still in my hand, but I don't dare use it. They'll see me. I crouch behind an oak, heart hammering, listening. The growling's louder, joined by that scraping metal sound. I think of Clarence from the diner, his story about soldiers' spirits hunting the living, punishing trespassers. I shouldn't have parked here, shouldn't have ignored the warnings. My arrogance is going to get me killed. I fumble in my pocket, pulling out the Polaroid. In the dim moonlight, I see it's changed. The figure's closer, its face sharper, grinning with too many teeth. My skin crawls. I drop it, backing deeper into the woods. The air's thick with a rotting stench, like death left to fester. I hear a snap behind me, too close. I bolt again, ignoring my throbbing ankle, weaving through trees. The main road can't be far, maybe a mile. If I can get there, I might find a car, a cop, anything. But the growling's right behind me now, and I feel their eyes boring into my back. I break through the trees into a clearing, and my heart sinks. It's not the road. It's another field, ringed by stones like some old ritual site. My flashlight catches carvings on them, jagged symbols that make my head hurt. Gettysburg's got stories of cults, people tapping into the battle's pain for dark rituals. I didn't believe it, but this feels disturbingly real. The figures are closing in, their shapes flickering like they're not fully here. I spot a dirt path leading out, my only shot. I run, but something grabs my backpack, yanking me back. I scream, twisting free, leaving the bag behind. I'm sprinting blind now, the path narrow and rocky. My ankle's screaming, but I can't stop. The growling's so close it vibrates in my chest. I think of my ex, Jasper, saying I'd get myself killed chasing freedom. He might be right. I see lights ahead, headlights, maybe. Hope surges, but then I hear it. A new voice, human, shouting my name. Aloan. It's coming from the field behind me, not the road. I freeze, confused. No one knows I'm here. The figures stop too, like they're waiting for me to turn back. My blood runs cold. It's a trap. I don't look back. I can't. I push toward the lights, praying it's a car, a house, anything human. The path twists, and I stumble onto asphalt, the main road. A truck's coming, its headlights blinding. I wave my arms, screaming, but the figures are right behind me, their growls turning into shrieks. The truck slows, and I think I'm saved. But as I glance back, the figures vanish, and the human voice calls again, closer, from the woods. Aloan, help me. It sounds like Margie from the diner, but that's impossible. My gut screams to keep running, but my heart's torn, and I hesitate. The truck's driver, an older guy with a gray beard, leans out, yelling, "Get in." I'm Aloan Kessler, standing on a Gettysburg road, shaking from cold and terror. The voice calling my name, Margie's voice, echoes from the woods, desperate, pleading. I want to help, but my gut's screaming it's a trick. Those things, those twisted figures, vanished when the truck appeared, but I feel them watching. I climb into the cab, slamming the door. The driver, Hank, says he's a local, knows these roads. "You're lucky," he says, eyeing me. "People disappear out here." I nod, too shaken to talk, but Margie's voice haunts me. I made it out, but at what cost? Hank drives toward town, the headlights cutting through fog that's rolled in thick and fast. I tell him about the figures, the Polaroid, the handprints. He's quiet, then says, "Sachs Bridge is cursed. Always has been." He mentions old tales, soldiers' spirits, yes, but also something darker, something that uses the dead to lure the living. My skin crawls. I think of the hiker's body from that news story, torn apart, and wonder if I dodged the same fate. My ankle throbs, but I'm alive. I check my pocket. The Polaroid's gone. I must have dropped it in the woods. My stomach twists, but I'm too tired to care. The truck's heater blasts, but I'm still freezing, like the cold's inside me. Hank's radio crackles, spitting static and garbled voices. One sounds like Margie, begging for help. I flinch, and Hank notices. "You heard it too?" he asks, his voice low. I nod, my throat tight. He says sometimes the dead don't stay dead around here, especially near the battlefields. I want to laugh it off, but the horror of tonight's too real. I ask him to drop me at a motel in town. I need walls, lights, people, anything to shake this feeling of being hunted. We pull into Gettysburg's main drag, the neon glow of a motel sign cutting through the fog. I thank Hank, who just nods, his eyes distant. "Don't come back to those fields," he warns. I promise I won't. Inside the motel, I lock the door, collapse on the bed, and try to process the nightmare. My van's still out there, dead in that field, with my stuff, my home. I'll have to deal with it tomorrow, but right now, I just want to feel safe. I turn on every light, check the windows, and clutch my knife like it's a lifeline. Sleep's not happening tonight. Morning comes, gray and heavy. I call a tow company to get Wanderer, but they say the field's empty. No van, no trace. My heart sinks. It's like I was never there. I take a bus back to Asheville, leaving Gettysburg behind, but the horror clings to me. I keep hearing Margie's voice, seeing those figures in my dreams. A week later, I'm at a coffee shop, trying to move on, when I spot a newspaper article. Local waitress missing near Sachs Bridge. It's Margie, vanished the night I was there. My blood runs cold. Her photo stares back, her tired eyes haunting me. I didn't imagine her voice. It was real. I dig through my bag, desperate to find something to ground me. My fingers brush a crumpled Polaroid I don't remember keeping. It's not the one of me or the figure. It's new. It shows Margie, standing in that field, her face twisted in terror, with those figures behind her. My hands shake as I realize it's dated the night I escaped. I didn't save her. I left her to them, whatever they were. Guilt hits like a freight train. I think of running back, telling someone, but who'd believe me? The photo's proof, but it's also a curse, tying me to that night. I burn the Polaroid in my sink, watching it curl and blacken, hoping it'll erase the nightmare. But that night, I hear it again, Margie's voice, whispering my name through the walls of my Asheville apartment. I check the locks, the windows, but the air's cold, like Gettysburg followed me home. I realize my mistake. I hesitated on that road, torn by her voice, and it let something latch onto me. The figures didn't need my van, they wanted me. Now, every shadow feels alive, every creak a step closer. I'm not free, I'm marked. I try to move on, but the horror's in me now. I see them in mirrors, in crowds, always just out of reach. Those figures, their glowing eyes, their jagged limbs. Friends notice I'm jumpy, distant, but I can't tell them. Who'd believe a Vanlife girl ran from monsters in Gettysburg? I stop sleeping, afraid of what I'll see when I close my eyes. One night, I find another Polaroid under my pillow, me, sleeping, with a figure standing over me. My scream wakes the neighbors. I know now, there's no escape. I ran, but I didn't get away. The tragedy isn't just Margie's death or my lost van. It's me, still breathing but not living. Gettysburg's curse didn't stay in that field. It's in my blood, my dreams, my every step. I move from place to place, but the figures follow, their whispers growing louder. I'm not sure if they're ghosts, demons, or something older, but they're patient. They'll wait. And when I slip up again, when I hesitate, when I trust, I know they'll take me. Until then, I'm a ghost myself, haunted by the night I thought I escaped, but really just traded one horror for another. The gravel crunches under my van's tires as I pull into a secluded lot off Baltimore Pike in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I'm Thane Carver, 32 years old, from Burlington, Vermont. My van, a beat-up Ford Transit I call Drifter, is my home on the road, decked out with a fold-out bed, solar panels, and a coffee maker I can't live without. I've been vanlifing for a year, chasing quiet spots to clear my head after losing my job. Gettysburg seemed like a cool stop. History, battlefields, maybe a ghost tour for fun. But tonight, parked near the edge of Culp's Hill, the air feels heavy, like it's holding a grudge. The battle here in 1863 was brutal. Thousands died, and locals say the ground still remembers. I sip my coffee, the steam curling in the chilly October air. Drifter's parked under a canopy of oaks, hidden from the road. I'm stealth camping, not exactly legal, but I'm low on cash and the official campgrounds were booked. My windows are blacked out with curtains, but I keep one cracked to watch the stars. Something about this place feels off, though. I read about Gettysburg's hauntings, soldiers' spirits, phantom gunfire. I'm not big on ghosts, but the silence out here is creepy, like it's waiting to be broken. I lock the doors, a habit from too many nights in sketchy spots. Earlier, I grabbed a burger at a bar in town called the Rusty Musket. The bartender, a guy named Silas with a scar across his cheek, gave me a weird look when I mentioned camping near Culp's Hill. "Careful up there," he said, wiping a glass. "Some folks don't come back right." I laughed it off, figuring he was playing up the town's spooky rep for tips. But now, sitting in Drifter, his words gnaw at me. I'm alone, which usually feels freeing, but tonight it's like the darkness is pressing against the van, testing its edges. I shake it off and grab my guitar to strum a few chords. The notes sound flat, swallowed by the heavy air. I set the guitar down, my fingers jittery for no reason. I've camped in wild places before, mountains, deserts, even a creepy rest stop in Nevada, but this feels different. Culp's Hill was a bloodbath during the battle, bodies piled so high they couldn't be buried right away. Locals whisper about a watcher up here, some entity tied to the slaughter, but I brushed it off as folklore. Still, I double-check my locks and slide a tire iron under my bed, just in case. You never know, right? I pull out my phone to check the map, planning tomorrow's route. No signal. Of course, this place is a dead zone. I've got a paper map, but it's crumpled in the glove box. As I dig for it, I find a flyer someone left at the bar, advertising a ghost walk. It mentions Culp's Hill, calling it a place where the veil is thin. Cute, but I'm not here for ghost stories. I just want a quiet night. Still, my eyes keep darting to the windows, like I'm expecting something to peer in. The oaks outside sway, their branches scraping the van's roof like fingers. I climb into bed, pulling the blanket tight. The van's cozy, with fairy lights strung across the ceiling, but they flicker, which is weird. My battery's fully charged. I tell myself it's just a loose wire, but my gut's not buying it. I think about Silas's warning, the way his scar twitched when he spoke. Maybe I should have parked closer to town. I'm good at ignoring my instincts. Lost my job because I didn't see the layoffs coming. Not making that mistake again. I sit up, deciding to check the battery connections, just to ease my mind. As I grab my flashlight, a faint glow catches my eye outside, like a lantern bobbing in the distance. My heart skips. Could be a camper, maybe a park ranger. But it's 1 a.m., and this lot's supposed to be empty. I aim the flashlight through the window, but the glow's gone. Great, now I'm seeing things. I laugh, but it's forced, my voice too loud in the quiet. I've heard stories of will-o-wisps in Gettysburg, lights luring people into the woods. Just myths, right? But the air feels thicker now, like it's watching me. I set the flashlight down, but my hands won't stop shaking. I try to settle back, focusing on the familiar hum of Drifter's fridge. But then I hear it, a low, rhythmic tapping, like knuckles on wood, coming from the van's side. My breath catches. It's probably just acorns falling, but it's too steady, too deliberate. I freeze, listening, as the tapping moves toward the back door. My mind flashes to a podcast about Gettysburg's darker legends. Not just ghosts, but something older, tied to the land's pain. I tell myself I'm overreacting, but my body's screaming otherwise. I grip the tire iron, heart pounding. The tapping stops, replaced by a faint whisper, like voices arguing just out of earshot. I strain to make out words, but it's gibberish, laced with a disturbing edge. I'm not alone out here, and whatever's outside knows I'm in here. I think about starting Drifter and bolting, but the idea of drawing attention makes my skin crawl. I slide to the window, peering through a gap in the curtain. Nothing but darkness and those swaying oaks. But as I pull back, something scratches the glass, sharp and slow, like it's daring me to look again. My blood runs cold, and I know this night's about to get a lot worse. The scratching on the van's window stops, but my heart's still racing like I've run a marathon. I'm Thane Carver, holed up in Drifter, my Ford Transit, parked in a lot off Baltimore Pike near Culp's Hill in Gettysburg. The tire iron's heavy in my hand, a poor comfort against whatever's out there. The air's thick, like it's pressing down on me, and the fairy lights flicker again, casting weird shadows across the van's walls. I check the battery monitor, full charge, yet the lights are acting up. My gut's screaming to move, but Drifter's got a finicky starter, and I'm not sure I trust it to fire up. I'm stuck, alone, in a place where the ground feels alive with something horrifying. I crawl to the driver's seat, keeping low, like that'll hide me from whatever's outside. The whispering I heard earlier is gone, but now there's a faint hum, like a swarm of bees just out of sight. I think of the bartender, Silas, and his cryptic warning about Culp's Hill. He mentioned the Watcher, a local legend tied to the battle's carnage, something that guards the hill, punishing those who linger. I laughed it off then, but now it feels disturbingly real. I grab my phone, still no signal, and curse myself for not springing for a satellite hotspot. My Vermont stubbornness thought I'd be fine without it. I fumble for the paper map in the glove box, my hands shaking. The flyer from the rusty musket falls out, its text about Culp's Hill glaring at me, where the veil is thin. I shove it aside, focusing on the map. I'm maybe a mile from the main road, but these back roads are a maze, and Drifter starter could crap out halfway. I think about hiking to town, but the idea of walking through those woods, with that hum in the air, makes my skin crawl. I've heard stories of hikers getting lost here, found days later, babbling about lights and voices. I'm not about to join them. I decide to check the battery connections, hoping that's why the lights are glitching. I grab my toolkit, but as I pop the hood release, something thuds against the van's roof, hard enough to dent it. I freeze, tire iron raised, listening. Another thud, then a slow drag, like something heavy's being pulled across. My mind flashes to a true crime case from Vermont. Campers found dead, their tents slashed like something clawed through. Culp's Hill has its own grim history. Soldiers gutted, left unburied. Whatever's up there isn't human, and it knows I'm here. I slam the hood release shut, too scared to go outside. The hum's louder now, vibrating through the van's walls. I peek through the curtain, and my breath catches that bobbing light's back, closer, hovering near the oaks. It's not a lantern. It's too steady, too pale, like a cold flame. I think of will-o-wisps, those old tales of lights luring people to their doom. Gettysburg's got its own version, tied to the battle's dead, leading soldiers into ambushes. I tell myself it's just a reflection, but my gut's screaming otherwise. I slide back, trying to stay quiet, but my elbow knocks over a mug, and it shatters, loud as a gunshot. The hum stops, and for a moment, I think I'm in the clear. Then the van rocks, like something's leaning against it. My heart's in my throat. I grab my flashlight, but I don't dare turn it on. Light feels like a beacon now. I think about Silas's scar, the way he looked at me, like he knew I was walking into a horror show. I should have listened, should have parked in town. My stubbornness is going to get me killed. I clutch the tire iron, debating whether to start Drifter and risk it stalling or stay put and pray whatever's out there moves on. Neither feels safe. I dig out my notebook, where I jot down travel notes, hoping writing will calm me. My pen shakes as I scribble. Culp's Hill, 1:30 a.m., something's outside. As I write, the dragging sound returns, circling the van now, slow and deliberate. My skin prickles. I flash back to a ghost story I heard at the bar. Soldiers seeing a figure on Culp's Hill, tall and eyeless, leading men to slaughter. I didn't believe it, but now I'm wondering if I parked on cursed ground. The dragging stops by the back door, and I hear a new sound, a low, wet gurgle, like something choking. I shove the notebook away and grab my keys, ready to try Drifter's engine despite the risk. But before I can move, something taps the window, sharp and rhythmic, like a nail on glass. My blood runs cold. I force myself to look, peeling back the curtain just a sliver. The light's right there, inches from the glass, and behind it, a shape, tall, too thin, with no face, just a black void where eyes should be. My scream catches in my throat. It's not moving, just staring, if you can call it that. I drop the curtain, my hands shaking so bad I can barely hold the keys. I'm trapped, my options shrinking fast. The gurgling's louder, joined by a faint chant, like words in a language I don't know. It's coming from all sides, closing in. I think about my old life in Burlington, how I thought Vanlife would fix everything. My job loss, my loneliness. Now I'm wondering if I drove straight into hell. The van's walls feel thinner, like they're melting away. I grip the tire iron, knowing it's useless against whatever's out there. The chanting grows, and the light pulses, like it's calling me out. I'm not sure what's worse, staying in here or facing what's waiting outside. The pulsing light outside my van's window burns into my eyes, and that faceless shape just stands there, unmoving. I'm Thane Carver, trapped in Drifter, my Ford Transit, parked in this haunted lot near Culp's Hill in Gettysburg. My hands are shaking so bad the tire iron slips, clanging against the floor. The chanting's louder now, a guttural mess of syllables that makes my head throb. It's not just one voice, it's dozens, layered, like a battlefield's dying screams. My gut screams this isn't just a ghost story, it's something older, something disturbingly alive. I'm alone, and the horror of this place is closing in fast, like a noose tightening around my neck. I scramble to the driver's seat, keys in hand, praying Drifter starts. The engine sputters, but catches, thank God. The dashboard lights flicker, though, and the battery monitor's glitching, dropping to 20% despite being full an hour ago. My heart sinks. I think of Silas's warning at the Rusty Musket. People not coming back right from Culp's Hill. I didn't ask what he meant, but now I'm picturing soldiers from 1863, their bodies torn apart, their souls stuck here, twisted into something worse. I slam Drifter into gear, but before I can move, the light outside flares, blinding me, and the engine dies. The van's dark now, the fairy light's dead. I grab my flashlight, but its beam's weak, barely cutting through the fog that's rolled in thick and fast. Outside, the shape's gone, but the chanting's everywhere, vibrating through Drifter's walls. Then I see them, more shapes, maybe 5, circling the van. They're tall, too thin, with limbs that bend wrong, like broken puppets. Their faces are voids, just black holes where features should be. My skin crawls. I've heard Gettysburg legends about the Watcher, a thing that hunts trespassers. but these feel like it's soldiers, summoned by the hill's bloody past. I lock the doors again, as if that'll help. The tire iron's back in my hand, but it's useless against these things. A new sound starts, a low, wet ripping, like flesh tearing. My stomach churns. I think of a news story from years back. Campers near Gettysburg found dead, their bodies mangled, like something chewed them up. The cops called it a bear, but locals whispered about Culp's Hill, about things that don't die. The ripping stops, and something slaps against the windshield, a hand, gray and rotted, smearing something dark. My scream stuck in my throat. I dive to the floor, hiding behind the passenger seat. The chanting's so loud it's in my head now. Words I can't understand but feel like they're pulling at my sanity. I think of my old life in Burlington, how I'd laugh at ghost stories over beers. Now I'm living one, and it's horrifying. I grab my notebook, desperate to anchor myself, and scribble what I see. But my pen freezes as I notice something. My handwriting's not mine. It's jagged, scrawled, spelling out, "You trespassed." My blood runs cold. I didn't write that. The van rocks hard, like something's climbing onto the roof. My flashlight's beam catches movement outside. Those shapes are closer, their void faces pressed against the windows. I can't tell if they're looking or just existing. My mind flashes to a Gettysburg tale about a ritual site on Culp's Hill, where soldiers' blood was used to summon something ancient. I thought it was tourist bait, but now I'm not so sure. The air's freezing, my breath fogging, and I swear the handprint on the windshield is moving, sliding down like it's alive. I'm trapped in a nightmare, and it's only getting worse. I try the ignition again, but it's dead, like something's draining Drifter's power. The chanting shifts, becoming my name. Thane, Thane, in a voice that's too deep, too wrong. My heart's pounding so hard I feel it in my skull. I think of Silas's scar, how he looked like he'd seen this before. Did he face these things and survive? I grab my phone, still no signal, but I notice the time, 3:33 a.m. The flyer from the bar said the veil is thinnest at this hour. Great. I'm stuck in a horror show at the worst possible time. Something scratches the roof, slow and deliberate, like it's carving a message. I'm shaking, my mind racing for a plan. I could run, but those things are out there, waiting. I think about the tire iron, maybe smashing a window to distract them, but that's a long shot. The shapes are tapping now, all around the van, like they're testing its walls. My eyes dart to my guitar case. I could use it as a shield, maybe. But deep down, I know nothing's stopping these things. They're not ghosts. There's something worse, tied to this hill's pain, and they want me. The chanting stops, and for a split second, I think it's over. Then a face, no, a void, presses against the driver's side window, inches from me. It's not just black, it's endless, like staring into a pit. My scream finally breaks free, but it's drowned by a deafening screech, like metal tearing. The van's roof buckles, and I smell something foul, like decay and gunpowder. I'm out of time. Whatever's here isn't just hunting. It's playing with me, savoring the horror. I grip the tire iron, knowing I'm about to face something I can't fight, and it's only a matter of seconds before it gets in. The van's roof groans, buckling under something heavy, and that void face at the window vanishes. I'm Thane Carver, trapped in Drifter, my Ford Transit, in a cursed lot near Culp's Hill, Gettysburg. The tire iron's slick in my sweaty hands, useless against whatever's out there. The air's thick with that decay and gunpowder stench, and the chanting, Thane, Thane, echoes in my skull. I can't stay here. Those things, those faceless horrors, are tearing into my van like it's tinfoil. I grab my backpack, phone, flashlight, water, and shove the tire iron in my belt. My only shot is to run for the main road, maybe a mile away. I take a shaky breath and kick the side door open, sprinting into the night. The cold air hits like a slap, and the fog so thick I can barely see 10 feet. My boots slip on wet grass as I bolt toward the woods, aiming for Baltimore Pike. Behind me, the van screeches, metal ripping like a scream. I glance back. Big mistake. Those things, 5 or 6 now, are crawling over Drifter, their jagged limbs tearing at it. Their void faces turn toward me, and I swear they're grinning without mouths. My heart's pounding, legs burning. I think of Gettysburg stories, soldiers lured to their deaths by things pretending to be human. These aren't ghosts. There's something worse, and they're fast. I hit the tree line, branches clawing my face. My flashlight's beam bounces, catching those pale lights bobbing in the fog. Will-o-wisps, maybe, or something tied to Culp's Hill's bloody past. I hear them behind me, not running but gliding, their gurgling breaths too close. I think of a news story from Burlington, a camper found in the woods, his body twisted like he'd been wrung out. This feels like that, but worse, like the hill itself wants me dead. I trip over a root, slamming my knee into a rock, but I scramble up, pain be damned. The road's my only hope. The chanting's louder, my name mixed with words I don't understand, like a warped prayer. I weave through trees, my flashlight catching glimpses of those things, too tall, too thin, moving like spiders. One's closer, its arms swinging something sharp, maybe a bayonet, glinting in the fog. My mind flashes to Silas's scar, his warning about Culp's Hill. Did he face these things? I push harder, ignoring my throbbing knee. The fog parts, and I see asphalt, the road. Headlights flash in the distance, and I wave my arms, screaming, praying it's not another trick. The headlights slow, a pickup truck. I sprint toward it, but something grabs my backpack, yanking me back. I twist free, the strap tearing, and stumble onto the road. The truck's driver, a woman with gray hair, yells, "Get in." I dive into the cab, slamming the door. Her name's Ruth, a local. "You're lucky," she says, peeling out. Culp's Hill eats people. I'm shaking, gasping, but safe, for now. I look back, expecting those things, but the fog's empty. Too empty. My gut twists. I left my notebook in the van, with that scrawled message, "You trespassed." It feels like I've left part of myself behind. Ruth's truck rattles along, the heater blasting, but I'm still freezing, like the colds in my bones. She glances at me, her eyes sharp. "You saw them, didn't you? The Watchers." I nod, too shaken to lie. She says they're tied to the hill's slaughter, feeding on guilt and pain. I think of the battle, thousands dead, their blood soaking this land. Did I wake something up by parking there? My knees bleeding through my jeans, and I feel lightheaded, like something's draining me. Ruth says she'll drop me in town, but her voice wavers, like she's scared too. The road twists, and the fog thickens, swallowing the headlights. Ruth curses, slowing down. I hear it again, my name, whispered from the fog, not in the truck, but outside. My skin crawls. Ruth hears it too, her hands tightening on the wheel. "Don't answer," she snaps. I nod, but the whisper grows, joined by that gurgling sound. Something slams against the truck's side, rocking it. Ruth screams, and I grab the tire iron, my heart hammering. The fog's alive, shapes moving in it, those things following us. I thought I'd escaped, but they're not done with me. We hit a straight stretch, and Ruth floors it, the truck shaking. The shapes fade, but the whispering doesn't. I check my phone, still no signal, but the screen's glitching, showing my name over and over. Thane, Thane. My stomach drops. I think of that notebook, the message I didn't write. Did I bring this on myself? Trespassing on cursed ground? Ruth's muttering about a safe spot in town, a church maybe, but her eyes keep darting to the rearview mirror. I look too, and my blood runs cold. A pale light's trailing us, pulsing like a heartbeat. We're almost to town when the truck sputters, the engine coughing. Ruth swears, slamming the dashboard, but it's no use. The truck dies. The fog's thicker now, wrapping us like a shroud. The whispering's a roar, my name everywhere, and those shapes are back, circling the truck. Ruth's praying now, her voice shaking. I grip the tire iron, knowing it's useless. The light's closer, and I see it, a figure in the fog, not faceless but familiar. It's Silas, the bartender, his scar glowing, his eyes empty. My heart stops. He's one of them now, and he's calling me out. The truck's dead, and Silas's face, wrong, hollow, stares through the fog. I'm Thane Carver, frozen in Ruth's pickup on a Gettysburg road, the tire iron shaking in my hands. The Watchers, those faceless things, are everywhere, their shapes flickering in the fog. Ruth's praying, but it's no use. The air's thick with horror, like the hill's pain is swallowing us. I realize my mistake. I thought running would save me, but I brought them with me. Silas's voice whispers my name, not from the fog, but inside my head, like he's part of me now. I scream at Ruth to run, but she's trembling, clutching a cross necklace, too scared to move. I've got to get us out, but I'm not sure I can. I kick the door open, dragging Ruth with me. The fog's so thick it's like wading through water, and the cold burns my skin. We stumble toward town, maybe a half-mile away, the neon glow of Gettysburg's lights barely visible. The watchers are close, their gurgling breaths hot on my neck. I swing the tire iron blindly, hitting nothing but air. My mind flashes to a Gettysburg legend, a ritual on Culp's Hill, soldiers' blood used to bind something ancient. I parked there, ignorant, and woke it up. Ruth trips, crying out, and I pull her up, but her cross necklace snaps, falling into the fog. The watchers hiss, like it burned them. We run, my niece screaming, Ruth gasping beside me. The lights of town are closer, but so are they. I hear Silas's voice again, begging, "Stay, Thane." It's not him. It's them, using his face to lure me. I think of a missing persons case from Gettysburg, a guy found dead near Culp's Hill, his face gone, like something erased it. That's what they want, me erased. We reach the edge of town, a gas station's glow ahead. I think we're safe, but Ruth screams, pointing. The fog's alive, swirling into shapes. Soldiers, their faces voids, bayonets dripping. They're not letting us go. I shove Ruth toward the gas station, yelling at her to get inside. She stumbles, but I don't stop. I can't. The watchers are on me, their claws grazing my back. I swing the tire iron, hitting something solid, and a screech tears through the air. The gas station's door is open, a clerk waving us in. I push Ruth through, but as I turn, Silas's face is there, inches away, his scar pulsing like a wound. "You can't leave," he whispers, but it's not his voice, it's theirs. I slam the door, collapsing inside, my chest heaving. The clerk locks it, muttering about damn ghosts, but I know it's worse. We're safe for maybe a minute before the lights flicker. The clerk, a kid named Joey, grabs a shotgun, but the fog's pressing against the windows, and those shapes are everywhere. Ruth's sobbing, and I'm shaking, the tire iron useless now. I think of my van, Drifter, torn apart on Culp's Hill. I left everything behind, my guitar, my notebook, my life. But the real mistake was stopping there, thinking I could outrun history. The chanting's back, my name a curse, and the windows crack, fog seeping in. Joey fires, but the shot does nothing. They're not physical, not anymore. I grab Ruth, pulling her behind the counter, but it's pointless. The fog's inside, cold and alive, and Silas's face appears, not outside but in the glass, like a reflection. My reflection. My heart stops. It's not Silas. It's me, my face hollow, my eyes gone. I scream, but the sound's swallowed. Ruth's gone quiet, her body limp, blood pooling from her throat. Joey's down too, his shotgun useless. I realize the twist. They didn't just want me dead, they wanted me to join them. My trespass woke them, and now I'm theirs. I try to run, but my legs won't move. The fog's in me, filling my lungs, my mind. I see flashes, soldiers dying on Culp's Hill, their screams, their blood feeding something ancient. I'm part of it now, my face fading into that void. I think of Burlington, my old life, how I thought Vanlife would save me. It didn't. It led me here, to this tragedy. The gas station's lights die, and I feel them take me, my body dissolving into the fog. I'm not Thane anymore. I'm one of them, bound to the hill, forever. Days later, a news report mentions a missing Vanlifer near Culp's Hill, no trace found. My van's gone, like it never existed. But hikers report a new figure in the fog, a tall man, face gone, holding a tire iron, whispering names. I'm still there, trapped, calling out to the next fool who trespasses. The watchers don't die. They grow, feeding on guilt, pain, mistakes. Mine was thinking I could escape. Now I'm their voice, luring others, my soul chained to Gettysburg's cursed ground, a ghost in a horror I can't wake from. The tragedy isn't just my death, it's the cycle. I'm not the first, won't be the last. Every night, I feel the hill's hunger, its need for more. I see my face in the fog, calling strangers, friends, anyone who lingers too long. I try to scream, to warn them, but my voice is theirs now. Gettysburg's history isn't just past, it's alive, and I'm proof. If you park near Culp's Hill, if you hear your name in the fog, run. Don't look back. I did, and now I'm gone, lost in a nightmare that never ends, a watcher forever. The van's tires hum as I pull into a dirt lot off Taneytown Road in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the stars hidden by a heavy sky. I'm Soren Vale, 27 years old, from Boise, Idaho. My van, a retrofitted Chevy Express I call Rogue, is my home, kitted out with a hammock bed, a propane stove, and a skylight I cracked open tonight. I've been van lifing for 8 months, chasing open roads to escape a dead-end job and a family that never got me. Gettysburg's a bucket list stop. History, battlefields, maybe some spooky vibes. But parking near Cemetery Hill, where thousands died in 1863, feels heavier than I expected. The air's thick, like it's holding onto something grim. I brew some instant coffee, the steam fogging Rogue's windows. I'm stealth camping, tucked behind some pines to avoid rangers. It's not exactly legal, but I'm broke, and the campgrounds were full. I've read about Gettysburg's ghosts, soldiers wandering, their cries echoing through the hills. I'm not big on supernatural stuff, but this place has a vibe that's hard to shake. I lock the doors, a habit from too many nights in sketchy lots. My lantern casts a warm glow, but outside, the darkness feels alive, like it's watching me. I laugh it off, but my chuckle sounds weak, swallowed by the quiet. Earlier today, I stopped at a cafe in town, the Pickett's Charge. The barista, a wiry guy named Gideon with a limp, gave me a funny look when I mentioned parking near Cemetery Hill. "That place don't like visitors," he said, wiping down the counter. I figured he was just leaning into the town's ghost tour shtick, but his words stick with me now. I'm alone, which usually feels like freedom, but tonight it's like I've parked in the middle of a horror movie. I check my phone. No signal, just like every other backroad stop. Great. I pull out my sketchbook, where I doodle scenes from my travels. Drawing calms me, but tonight my lines are shaky, the pencil slipping. Cemetery Hill's got a reputation. Bodies left unburied after the battle, spirits that don't rest. Locals talk about a reaper, out here, some entity tied to the slaughter, but I brushed it off as folklore. Still, I slide my pocket knife under my pillow, a silly precaution from too many campfire stories. I've camped in wild places, Idaho deserts, Oregon forests, but this feels different, like the ground's humming with something dark. I sip my coffee, trying to shake the unease. Rogue's cozy, with tapestries pinned to the walls, but the skylight's letting in a chill that shouldn't be there. I think about moving closer to town, but it's past midnight, and these roads are twisty. Plus, Rogue's got a leaky radiator. I don't trust it for a late-night drive. I tell myself I'm overreacting, probably just tired from the road. But as I set my mug down, a faint glow flickers outside, like a candle in the distance. My heart skips. Could be a hiker, maybe, but it's too late for that. I grab my flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark, but the glow's gone. I'm probably imagining things, right? I think of Gideon's limp, how he looked at me like I was already doomed. Maybe I should have listened. I check the locks again, my fingers clumsy. The pines outside sway, their needles scraping Rogue's roof, sounding too much like whispers. I've heard stories of Gettysburg's lights, ghostly signals luring soldiers to their deaths. Just myths, but my skin's prickling. I climb into my hammock, pulling the blanket tight, but the air feels colder, like it's seeping through the van's walls. I try to focus on tomorrow, maybe hit the battlefield museum, sketch some monuments. But my eyes keep darting to the windows, expecting something to peer in. I think about my sister back in Boise, how she called Vanlife reckless. She's not wrong, but I'm not turning back now. Still, I can't shake the feeling I've parked somewhere I shouldn't. The glow reappears, closer now, bobbing between the pines. My breath catches. It's not a candle. It's too steady, too pale. I tell myself it's just a car's headlights, but deep down, I know it's not. I dig out my map, trying to plot a quick exit if things get weird. Cemetery Hill's marked with a skull icon, which I thought was just tourist flair, but now it feels ominous. I find a flyer from the cafe, tucked in my bag, advertising a ghost tour. It mentions the Reaper of Cemetery Hill, a figure that claims those who disturb the dead. Cute, but my gut's not laughing. As I fold the map, a faint tap starts on the van's side, slow and deliberate, like someone's testing it. My heart's in my throat. It's probably just a branch, but it feels too intentional, too alive. The tapping grows louder, moving toward the back door. I freeze, clutching my flashlight like it's a lifeline. The glow outside pulses, and I hear a low hum, like a voice trapped underwater. My mind flashes to a podcast about Gettysburg's darker myths, not just ghosts, but something ancient, feeding on the battle's pain. I tell myself I'm being paranoid, but the hum turns into a word, Soren, whispered right outside. My blood runs cold. I'm not alone, and whatever's out there knows my name. This isn't just a creepy night. It's the start of something horrifying, and I'm not sure I'm ready for what's coming. The whisper of my name, Soren, cuts through the hum, sharp and cold, like it's coming from inside my van. I'm Soren Vale, crouched in robe, my Chevy Express, parked in a lot off Taneytown Road near Cemetery Hill in Gettysburg. My flashlight's shaking in my hand, its beam useless against the dark pressing on the windows. The tapping stopped, but that pale glow outside pulses, closer now, weaving through the pines. My heart's hammering, and I'm kicking myself for ignoring Gideon's warning at the cafe. He said Cemetery Hill doesn't like visitors, and now I'm wondering if I've parked on something sacred or cursed. This place feels alive with a horror I can't shake. I check Rogue's locks, my fingers fumbling. The back door's latch feels loose, which it wasn't yesterday. Great. I grab my multi-tool from the glove box, tightening the screws, but the metal's cold, like it's been sitting in ice. My mind races to a Boise campfire story about haunted grounds, where objects turn cold when spirits are near. I laugh it off, but it's a nervous chuckle. I'm alone, and the air's thick, like it's daring me to move. I think about starting Rogue and bolting, but the radiator's been leaking, and I don't trust it to get me far. Plus, that glow outside feels like it's waiting for me to try. I dig out my sketchbook, hoping drawing will calm me, but my pencil snaps when I press too hard. The flyer from the Pickett's Charge Cafe falls out, its text about the Reaper of Cemetery Hill glaring at me. Gideon's limp, his grim warning. He knew something. I should have pressed him for details. Now I'm stuck, no signal on my phone, and the map shows I'm a mile from the main road, through twisty paths and woods. I could hike, but the thought of walking past that glow makes my skin crawl. I've heard of hikers vanishing near Gettysburg, their gear found, but not their bodies. I slide to the driver's seat, keys in hand, weighing my options. Stay put and hope it's just my imagination, or risk driving and maybe break down in the dark. The hum's back, louder, like a chorus of drowned voices. My gut screams it's tied to the battle. 51,000 dead, many left to rot on this hill. I think of a true crime podcast about a camper found near here, his body drained, like something sucked him dry. The glow pulses faster, and I hear a new sound, a slow drag, like a blade on stone, circling Rogue. My blood runs cold. This isn't just a creepy night, it's something worse. I peek through the curtain, and my breath catches. The glow's right outside, hovering over the ground, and behind it, a shape, tall, cloaked, with no face, just a shadow where one should be. My heart's in my throat. I think of the Reaper legend, a figure that hunts those who disturb the dead. I didn't disturb anything, did I? Just parked here. But the dragging sound stops by the back door, and something scratches, slow and deliberate, like it's carving into the metal. I grab my pocket knife, knowing it's useless against whatever this is. I try the ignition, praying Rogue starts. The engine sputters, but dies, the dashboard lights flickering like they're mocking me. The battery's at 70%, but it's dropping fast, like something's draining it. My mind flashes to a Gettysburg ghost tour story, electronics failing near Cemetery Hill, like the dead hate modern tech. I'm not buying it, but the evidence is staring me in the face. The scratching gets louder, and I swear I hear a laugh, low and guttural, like it's enjoying my panic. I'm trapped, and this thing knows it. I think about Gideon, how he limped, like he'd escaped something once. Did he? I grab my flashlight, aiming it at the back door, but the beam's weak, barely piercing the dark. The glow's still there, and the shape's clearer now, too tall, its cloak tattered, moving like it's floating. My stomach twists. I think about my sister in Boise, how she'd say I'm reckless for camping alone. She's right, but admitting it now won't help. I consider smashing a window, making a run for it, but the woods feel like a trap. The scratching stops, and for a moment, I think it's over. Then something slams against the door, hard enough to dent it. I bite back a scream, my hands shaking. I fumble for my sketchbook, desperate to do something normal. But as I flip it open, I freeze. The page I was drawing on is covered in jagged lines, not mine, forming a symbol, a circle with a slash, like the ones on old battlefield markers. My heart stops. I didn't draw that. My mind races to a Gettysburg myth about a reaper marking its prey, claiming them for the hill. The glow pulses again, and the hum turns into a voice, whispering, "Soren, you're mine." It's not outside. It's in the van, in the air, in me. I'm not imagining this. It's real, and it's horrifying. I slide to the floor, clutching my knife, my back against the hammock. The van feels smaller, like it's shrinking around me. The glow's brighter, seeping through the cracks in the curtains, and the shape's right outside, its shadow stretching across the wall. I think about running, but my legs won't move. The air's freezing, my breath fogging, and I swear the symbol in my sketchbook is glowing, faint but real. I'm not just a trespasser. I'm marked. The slamming starts again, rhythmic, like a heartbeat, and I know I'm out of time. Whatever's out there is coming in, and I'm not sure I can stop it. The slamming on Rogue's door stops, but the glowing symbol in my sketchbook burns into my eyes. I'm Soren Vale, huddled in my Chevy Express, parked in a lot off Taneytown Road near Cemetery Hill in Gettysburg. My pocket knife's useless in my shaking hand, and the air's so cold my fingers are numb. The whisper, "Soren, you're mine," echoes in my head, not outside but inside, like it's part of me. The pale glow seeps through the curtains, and that cloaked shape outside hasn't moved. My heart's pounding, and I'm kicking myself for parking here, ignoring Gideon's warning about this hill's curse. This isn't just a creepy night, it's a horror show, and I'm the star. I crawl to the driver's seat, desperate to try the engine again. The key turns, but Rogue's dead, the dashboard dark. The battery monitor's at 10% now, draining faster than it should. My mind flashes to a Gettysburg ghost tour story, electronics failing when the Reaper is near, like it feeds on power. I thought it was tourist nonsense, but now it feels disturbingly real. The glow pulses, and a new sound starts, a low, wet rasp, like someone dragging a body through mud. My stomach churns. I think of the battle, bodies left to rot here, their pain soaking into the ground. Whatever's out there isn't human anymore. I grab my flashlight, but its beams so weak it barely lights the van. Through the curtain's gap, I see the shape, taller now, its cloak tattered, swaying like it's not touching the ground. Then, more shapes, maybe 4, emerge from the fog, their outlines jagged, like broken bones stitched together. My blood runs cold. They're not ghosts, they're worse, tied to Cemetery Hill's slaughter, maybe summoned by it. I think of a news story from Boise, a hiker found with his eyes gone, like something carved them out. These things feel like they'd do worse. The rasping grows, circling Rogue, and the symbol in my sketchbook pulses brighter, like it's alive. I slam the book shut, but the van shakes, something heavy climbing onto the roof. My heart's in my throat. I think of Gideon's limp, how he looked at me like I was already dead. Did he face this Reaper? The shapes outside tap the windows, slow and deliberate, like they're toying with me. My mind races to a Gettysburg legend. The Reaper marks its prey with a symbol, claiming their soul. That circle slash in my sketchbook wasn't there before. I'm marked, and it's terrifying. I try the radio, hoping for a signal, but it's just static, spitting garbled voices that sound like my name. My phone's dead now, the screen black. The air's freezing, my breath fogging, and I swear the handprints on the windows, new, smudged, are moving, sliding inward. My skin crawls. I think of a true crime case, a camper near Gettysburg found with strange marks on his body, like something branded him. Is that what's happening to me? The rasping stops, and for a moment, I think it's over. Then something slams the skylight, cracking it, and a claw, like bone, not flesh, scrapes through. I scream, diving to the floor, my knife skittering away. The shapes are everywhere now, their shadows stretching across the van's walls. The whisper's back, "Soren, you're mine." And it's not just one voice but dozens, like the dead of Cemetery Hill speaking as one. My mind spirals to a myth I read about, a reaper that collects souls to feed the hill's hunger, turning trespassers into its puppets. I didn't disturb anything, but parking here was enough. The skylight cracks wider, and that claw reaches in, dripping something black. I'm trapped, and this horror's only beginning. I grab my backpack, shoving in my flashlight and water, thinking I'll smash a window and run. But the shapes are pressing against the glass, their jagged forms blocking every exit. My heart's hammering, and I feel lightheaded, like something's draining me. I think of my sister in Boise, how she'd say I'm reckless. She's right, but it's too late now. The claw scrapes again, and the van's walls groan, like they're bending inward. I'm not just fighting for my life. I'm fighting for my soul, and I'm losing. The chanting starts, my name mixed with words I can't understand, like a ritual. My sketchbook falls open, and the symbols glowing red now, burning the page. My chest tightens, like something squeezing my heart. I think of Gideon's warning, the flyer about the Reaper. Did I wake it by parking here? The shapes tap faster, and the claws halfway through the skylight, its black drip pooling on the floor. My vision blurs, and I swear I see my face in the window. Not a reflection, but me, eyeless, smiling. My screams drowned by the chanting, and I know I'm out of time. Something slams the back door, denting it inward, and the van rocks hard. The shapes are inside the fog now, their forms flickering like they're not fully here. My mind screams to fight, but my body's frozen, the cold seeping into my bones. The whisper's deafening, and I feel it, something tugging at my mind, like it's trying to pull me out of myself. I clutch the backpack, my only anchor, but the claws scraping closer, and the symbols burning brighter. Whatever's out there isn't just hunting me, it's claiming me, and I'm not sure I can stop it. The horror's real now, and it's only getting worse. The claw tears through the skylight, black ooze dripping onto the floor, and I know I'm out of time. I'm Soren Vale, trapped in Rogue, my Chevy Express, parked near Cemetery Hill in Gettysburg. The glowing symbol in my sketchbook burns red, and the chanting, "Soren, you're mine," is deafening. My pocket knife's gone, so I grab a wrench from my toolkit, a pathetic weapon against these Reaper things. The van's walls are buckling, the shapes outside pressing closer, their eyeless faces like voids. I can't stay. I slam the side door open, backpack slung over my shoulder, and sprint into the fog, my heart pounding like it's trying to escape my chest. The hill's alive with horror, and I'm running for my life. The fog's thick, swallowing my flashlight's beam, and the pines claw at my arms as I bolt toward Taneytown Road. Behind me, Rogue screeches, metal ripping like paper. I glance back, mistake. The shapes, 5 or 6, are gliding after me, their cloaks tattered, moving too fast for anything human. My knees screaming from an old skateboarding injury, but I push through, the cold air burning my lungs. I think of a Gettysburg story, soldiers lured into the fog, their bodies found drained. These things aren't ghosts. There's something worse, tied to the hill's bloody past. The road's maybe a mile away, but it feels like a lifetime. I weave through trees, the chanting in my head, my name a curse. The glow follows, those pale lights bobbing like willow wisps, leading me deeper into the woods instead of out. My mind flashes to a true crime case. A hiker near Gettysburg, found with symbols carved into his skin. Is that what's coming for me? I trip over a root, my wrench flying into the dark, and scramble up, my hands muddy. The shapes are closer, their rasping breaths hot on my neck. I see a clearing ahead, maybe a path to the road. Hope surges, but the glow's right behind me, and I feel their claws graze my back. I break into the clearing, but it's not a path, it's a circle of stones, etched with that same circle/symbol from my sketchbook. My stomach drops. Gettysburg's got myths about ritual sites, where the battle's blood woke something ancient. I've stumbled into one. The shapes surround the clearing, their voids staring, and the chantings a roar now. I think of Gideon's limp, his warning about Cemetery Hill. Did he escape this? I sprint across the circle, aiming for the far side, but something grabs my backpack, yanking me down. I twist free, leaving it behind, and run, my lungs screaming. The road so close I can taste it. Asphalt hits my boots, Taneytown Road. Headlights flash through the fog, a car slowing. I wave frantically, screaming, my voice raw. The driver, an older guy named Walt, yells, "Get in." I dive into his sedan, slamming the door. He peels out, the fog swirling behind us. "You're lucky," he says, his voice shaky. "Cemetery Hill's bad news." I'm gasping, my knee bleeding, but alive. I tell him about the shapes, the symbol. He nods, muttering about the Reaper, a thing that claims trespassers. I think of my van, torn apart, but I'm out. Or so I think. The fog's still thick, and the chanting's not gone. It's in the car. Walt's hands tremble on the wheel, and I notice his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. I look back. Those lights are following, pulsing like heartbeats. My heart sinks. I thought I'd escaped, but they're not done. The car's radio crackles, spitting my name in that same drowned voice. Walt flinches, like he hears it too. "Don't listen," he snaps, but the chanting's louder and the fog's pressing against the windows. Something slams the car's roof, rocking it. I clutch the door, my mind racing. Did I bring this with me? The symbol's burned into my brain, and I feel it, like it's on my skin now, marking me. We're nearing town, the neon glow of Gettysburg's lights cutting through the fog. Walt's muttering about a church, a safe place, but his voice cracks, like he's not sure. The shapes are outside, gliding alongside the car, their claws scraping the metal. My skin crawls. I think of a missing persons case, campers vanishing near Cemetery Hill, their gear found, but not them. Is that my fate? The car swerves as Walt dodges something in the road. A figure, cloaked, standing still. My heart stops. It's Gideon, his limp gone, his face a void. He's one of them now, and he's staring right at me. I scream at Walt to keep going, but the car sputters, the engine coughing. The fog's thicker, like it's alive, and the shapes are everywhere, their rasping breaths filling the air. Walt's praying now, his knuckles white. I think of my sister in Boise, how she'd say I'm reckless. She's right, but I can't fix it now. The car slows, and Gideon's face, no, not Gideon, presses against my window, its void smiling. The chanting's deafening, and I feel it, something tugging at my mind, like it's pulling me apart. I'm not sure we're making it to town, and I'm not sure I'm still me. The headlights flicker, and the car dies, stranding us in the fog. The shapes close in, their claws tapping the glass. Walt's sobbing, and I'm frozen, the symbol burning in my mind. I realize my mistake. Running didn't free me. It spread the Reaper's curse. The fog's in the car now, cold and heavy, and Gideon's voice whispers, "Soren, join us." I scream, but it's too late. The shapes aren't just outside. They're in me, and I'm not sure what's worse, dying here or becoming one of them. The horror's not over. It's just beginning. The car's dead, and the fog's alive, swirling inside, choking me. I'm Soren Vale, trapped in Walt's sedan on a Gettysburg road, the Reaper's shapes clawing at the windows. Walt's prayers are a whisper, drowned by the chanting. "Soren, join us." My skin's burning where the symbol from my sketchbook feels etched, like it's part of me now. I realize my mistake. I thought escaping Cemetery Hill would save me, but I carried the Reaper with me. Gideon's void face is everywhere, in the glass, in my mind. Walt's shaking, his eyes wide, and I know we're not getting out. The horror's not just outside, it's in us, and I'm the one who woke it. I kick the door open, dragging Walt with me, but the fog's a wall, thick and cold. We stumble toward town, the neon lights faint through the haze. The shapes glide behind, their claws scraping the ground. My knees screaming, blood soaking my jeans, but I push Walt forward, yelling at him to run. He's slow, his breath ragged, and I see it. His arms marked with that circle/symbol, glowing faintly. My stomach drops. It's not just me, it's both of us. I think of a Gettysburg myth. The Reaper marks its prey, binding them to the hill's hunger. We're doomed. We reach the edge of town, a diner's glow ahead. I shove Walt toward it, but something grabs my leg, claws sinking in. I scream, swinging my fist, but it's like hitting smoke. The shapes surround us, their voids staring, and Gideon's face, no, mine, appears in the fog, eyeless, smiling. My heart stops. I think of a news story, bodies found near Cemetery Hill, marked with strange symbols, drained of life. That's us now. Walt collapses, blood pooling from his chest, the symbol glowing brighter. I try to run, but my leg's useless, and the fog's in my lungs, heavy alive. The diner's door is yards away, but it might as well be miles. The shapes close in, their rasping breaths a chorus of death. I think of my sister, how she begged me to stay in Boise. I should have listened. The fog's thicker, and I feel it, my mind unraveling, like the Reaper's pulling my soul out. Gideon's voice whispers, "You woke us, Soren." I didn't mean to, but parking on that hill was enough. The shapes aren't just hunting, they're collecting, and I'm next. I crawl toward the diner, but the fog's a cage, and my vision blurs, the symbol burning my skin. I reach the diner's door, my hands shaking, but it's locked, the lights flickering. I bang on the glass, screaming, but no one's inside. The fog's everywhere, and the shapes are on me, their claws tearing at my back. I think of my sketchbook, left in rogue, its symbol tying me to this nightmare. My mistake was thinking I could outrun it. The chanting's deafening, and I feel my face change, my eyes fading, like I'm becoming one of them. I scream, but it's not my voice. It's theirs, hollow and endless. I'm not Soren anymore. I'm theirs. Days later, a news report mentions a missing Vanlifer near Cemetery Hill. No trace found. Rogue's gone, like it never existed. Walt's body turns up, marked with that symbol, his face gone. I'm not found, but I'm not gone. I'm in the fog now, my face a void, wandering Cemetery Hill. I see hikers, campers, and I call their names, my voice not mine. The Reaper didn't kill me. It took me, made me its own. I try to warn others, to scream, but I'm trapped, a puppet in its game, bound to the hill's hunger. Every night, I feel the hill's pulse, its need for more. I see my face in the fog, eyeless, calling strangers to their doom. The tragedy isn't just my death, it's the cycle. I'm not the first, won't be the last. Gettysburg's history isn't past, it's alive, and I'm its proof. I parked there, thinking I was free, but I woke something ancient, and it claimed me. If you hear your name near Cemetery Hill, run. Don't look back. I did, and now I'm gone, lost in a horror that never ends, a Reaper's shadow forever. I try to fight it, to remember Boise, my sister, my sketches, but it's fading. The hill owns me. It's pain my prison. I see others in the fog. Gideon, Walt, countless soldiers, all marked, all trapped. We're the Reaper's army, luring the living to feed its hunger. My mistake was thinking I could escape. Now I'm a whisper in the night, a glow in the fog, calling the next fool who trespasses. The hill never sleeps, and neither do I, bound to this nightmare, a ghost in a tragedy I can't undo. The fog rolls on, and I'm in it, my voice echoing, "Come to us." I want to stop, to save someone, but the Reaper's stronger. Gettysburg's blood demands more, and I'm its tool. If you park near Cemetery Hill, if you see a glow, if you hear your name, don't answer. Run, faster than I did. I thought I'd escaped, but I was wrong. The horror's not out there. It's in me, and it's in you if you stay too long. I'm Soren, or I was, and this is my end, a warning you'll never hear until it's too late.